On today's episode, it's the movie that proves the age-old rule. If Tom Cruise bumps into you in a crowded area, just assume that he did some shit. We watched Night and Day as Nothing Blockbusters wraps up today on Nothing Movies. Welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to Nothing Movies, where we ask the question, the f*** is this? It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose the most anonymous and culturally untalkable movies that they've made, and decide whether or not they've got a certain something, or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lascard.
I'm Jameson Rafter.
And today we're looking at 2010's Night and Day, and to help us talk about it, the biggest Tom Cruise fan that I know, a dear, dear friend of mine, someone that I went to Studio 58 theater conservatory program with, just one of absolutely my favorite people in the entire world. Sara Andrina Brown is here today. Hi, girl. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Night and Day from 2010. Let me tell you, if I was driving a car and I saw this movie, I would angrily honk my horn at it. Because this thing is in the middle of the road!
Oh, I see.
Is it good? Not really. Is it bad? I wouldn't even say that. Is it boring? I wouldn't even go that far. The word I would use for it is functional.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you want to see some car chases and explosions? This has it.
Yeah.
You want to see Tom and Cameron be fun and flirty? It's here. You're not going to get anything more than that, though. That's the extent of it.
To me, it's really two movies.
Sure,
the later half of it is just your sort of bog standard action, spy, thriller, comedy, what have you. But the first leg of this movie is sort of a window into what it must be like to be in a relationship with Tom Cruise. I was watching this and I thought to myself at one point, I wonder what Nicole Kidman and Katie Holmes feel about this movie. They're just pointing at the screen going, yeah, that's about right.
You might know the time frame better than I do, but he was married to Katie Holmes when this movie came out, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't know. They might have gone to like the opening together and Katie might have recognized some behavior in the character of Roy Miller, and she might have started making her escape plan at that particular juncture. Sara, in the past, I've talked to your off about my podcast, and we always said for years now, if we ever covered a Tom Cruise movie, I would get you talk about it because you've been such a mega fan for as long as I've known you. And
Are you being facetious? Is she a legit fan?
I am a legit fan.
Okay.
Now, I will specify, I am a legit hardcore fan of his movies.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he's a good person. I have no way of knowing that because I don't know him. But this is deep, man. This goes back like into tween years. I mean, I imprinted on Tom Cruise.
Right.
A la Top Gun, Take My Breath Away, he did. So I will say that I went into Night and Day with a whole lot of hope and a whole lot of acceptance and just went in for the ride and had some fun with it. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that you can have some fun
there
with.
was some fun.
Absolutely.
Fun to be had. Yeah, there are fun moments in this.
Is it fair to say Top Gun is your Rosetta Stone? That's the one that really kicked things off for you?
Gosh, it's so hard. I mean, I guess. Like, that is the one that kicked it off for me. But there are different Tom Cruises. Like, there's Far and Away, which is, like, super romantic Tom Cruise. Also in that vein, Jerry Maguire. I mean,
right.
Jerry Maguire. Right? Like, right to the heart.
You
this guy.
complete me.
You complete me. And then you go, like, Magnolia style,
Right.
where he's, like, got this crazy epic monologue. He's totally misogynistic, and I love it, you know? So I love all the different choices he's made in his career, and it's hard for me to distill my appreciation down to, like, one movie. But I would say Top Gun is the one that I've watched probably the most.
Right. We've mentioned this on a couple of different episodes, but Top Gun on VHS, growing up, it seemed like there was some sort of law that every household in North America had to have a copy of Top Gun on VHS.
We had Top Gun on VHS.
Yeah, because I think everyone did. I think that was it was illegal not to.
Is it fair to say that Tom Cruise is the biggest movie star we've ever covered on this show? Maybe possibly only followed by Arnie?
That's a great question.
Because, like, they're parallel to each other, but Tom Cruise never stopped making movies.
No, he truly didn't, and I think it's pretty fair to say Tom Cruise is maybe like the biggest movie star, period.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like point blank across all countries and demographics. Even more so today. What's wild is that we breeze through his career because it's actually a more concise career than I had thought when I was running it out. I'm all like, oh, we won't spend too long in the week. I mean, best laid plans.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, like the thing is like he goes through peaks and valleys, but you would assume at this point in time, Tom Cruise might be running on fumes. Arguably, he's more famous now than he has been ever throughout like his careers. He's doubled down on quality over quantity with TC, I think. He'll go like a couple of years without releasing a movie, but when he does release a movie, he makes it the most moviest movie you can possibly see. Like, you get your money's worth.
He makes some good decisions. I'll certainly give him that. I never thought we would be able to cover Tom Cruise on this podcast, given the pedigree of us going for the really obscure stuff. In my mind, he has no obscure stuff. Everything that he puts out is in the public eye. I mean, a couple of years ago, they did a commemorative, what was it, like 40 years of Tom Cruise celebrations in film or something like that. But like, it's well deserved. I like his movies. I like him as an actor, but he's certainly one of those actors where I'm one of those guys that's always preaching separate the artist from the art.
Yeah.
This is a prime example of someone I have to do that with.
Yeah, no doubt. For sure. I mean, because I have had very many romantic feelings about Tom Cruise spanning my whole life as a young teenager and into adulthood, I have also acknowledged I don't know that he's an easy person to be married to.
I think very clearly
know.
he is not,
Yeah.
given his many public divorces.
Yeah, and I'm just like, whatever, I'm gonna let that go because it's none of my business, and I like him for his art and his work and his catalog of amazing work. But
And there's also that silly little detail of him happening to be like a figurehead of one of the most insidious cults in North America. There we go.
One of the most litigious organizations in the world.
They don't listen to this. It's fine. We'll be fine. But when we opened up the idea of what movies we should be covering on the podcast, and we're trying out this miniseries on nothing blockbusters, that immediately thought, oh, maybe now is the time we can get a Tom Cruise movie in here. And certainly looking over his catalog of films,
mostly blockbusters?
Mostly blockbusters, mostly well-known. I feel like Night and Day is the one that stood out for me the most, because it's just the one that, as I say in our ramp-up, kind of has the least cultural footprint of anything. It's one of the most anonymous films that he's made, down to the fact that if you look at the poster for this movie, it's just silhouettes of Tom Cruise and Cameron. So it's like, no wonder...
They could be anybody.
No wonder no one remembers this, because they couldn't even be bothered to show up for the damn poster. This is a terrible poster, by the way. They didn't even try on this one.
Is that the theatrical one?
This is the theatrical poster, and then there's an alternate one where they're on the motorcycle.
Okay.
And Cameron's doing like the straddling thing or whatever, and it's just a screenshot from the movie. They couldn't figure out how to market this movie. This movie went through absolute nightmare production. It went through a couple of different stars. It has one person is credited to the screenplay of this movie, but reportedly there were no less than like 12 different screenwriters working on this at one point in time.
It kind of feels that way.
It's a real soup of a movie.
Yeah,
a real stew. People throw
some scenes better than others, some more meandering than
and
others.
like a weird stew, like carrots and rutabaga. But yeah, so let me run down the Tom Cruise filmography, and this is also going to be like an interesting checklist for me, Sarah, because I want to see how many of these you have seen and how many of them you have opinions on. I'm sure you have opinions on so many of them.
I'm curious about this too. Yeah, let's do this.
So taking the Tom Cruise filmography and putting it against the filmography that we ran last episode, which was Brad Pitt. The interesting thing is that I front-loaded that episode with a bunch of Brad Pitt's TV credits, because you talk about like these actors, and some of them have like guest stars in like TV shows early on in their career before they were famous. Here's the interesting thing about Tom Cruise. No TV credits. Not a single one. He never dipped his toe into that field, and he never has. The only TV credit he has is he directed an episode of a 1993 anthology show called Fallen Angels, which is also the only thing he's ever directed.
Wow.
So that's like that weird little footnote for it. That's the only TV he's done, and it's the only directing he's ever done. And in both cases, he said, not for me. And he's never attempted it ever again.
He's such a big movie star, he only does movies.
He only does movies.
Only
and
in front of the camera.
And as you'll see, like he has a couple of small roles that start off his filmography, but the ball gets rolling on Tom Cruise, superstar, pretty damn fast. So yeah, Thomas Cruise Mapother IV.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
That is his name.
Oh, man.
Yeah, his legal name is Mapother. His cousin is character actor William Mapother, who people might remember as from Lost as Ethan, as like creepy Ethan.
Oh, from the others?
From the others, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That guy's he got the same blood as TC. He moves to New York and he starts auditioning for roles. His first role is in the 1981 film Endless Love.
Oh, Endless Love.
Which belongs in a subcategory of films that existed in the late 70s, early 80s that I call the Exploiting Underage Brooke Shields trilogy of films, which includes Endless Love, The Blue Lagoon, and Pretty Baby.
Pretty Baby.
Which just Jameson, have you heard of this movie?
Hell no.
This is just a reminder to everyone listening that not only were we cool in 1978 with having a movie where 11-year-old Brooke Shields plays a child who grows up in a brothel and is basically like taught and groomed to sell her body. Not only were we cool with that being a movie, we were cool with calling it Pretty Baby. It's called Pretty Baby. What the fuck was wrong with us back then?
I wasn't even born then.
So I know, exactly. Yeah. But my hands are clean on this one.
I would have had something to say about
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay, can I give you a quick story?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Endless Love, 1981, this show came out. I was 1 year old. I didn't see it.
Sure.
In fact, I didn't see it until I was about 16 or 17. I didn't know Tom Cruise was in it. It was on in the background, watching TV, gabbing with my sister. I see a man's butt, clad in like tight Levi's jean shorts, sweatily running with no shirt, and I stopped conversation, pointed my finger, and said, "That is Tom Cruise's butt." Now, this is before
I know
PVR.
that butt anywhere.
I know that butt anywhere. And I got my attention on the screen just in time to hear him deliver a truly great little mini monologue about being somewhat of a psycho kid and setting a house on fire and being called a hero for having done so. He delivers this monologue. It's fantastic. It's like 40 seconds. He's not in the movie very long. And it's important to the movie because it plants a seed for the main character to burn a house down, actually by accident. Anyway, I was so proud of myself for recognizing his butt in that like 1 second of screen time that I declared myself like the best Tom Cruise fan of all time to my sister who supported me in that. But the movie is actually kind of a beautiful movie and a little bit twisted and very dated. I don't know that it ages especially well, but it was a decent enough watch. But to see Tom Cruise just come in for this little tiny role, these few moments on screen, and then the career that followed. What can you say?
You're certainly the number one TC Butt fan of.
It's
like you go to the movies and there's that little like before the movie starts game or whatever. It's all like, can you recognize this famous celebrity ass?
I think he might be the only ass I know that well. I mean, I'm
a lot of time pausing the volleyball scene in Top Gun. I'm
yeah,
guessing.
That might be what it is.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the first of Tom Cruise's
That's the first of
credits.
many credits. So after that, same year, he is in the military drama Taps, which is an early film for Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn. He plays a military kid who they take over the military academy when their teacher gets fired, and it leads to a tragic ending. But he's like the hothead. He's like the one you don't want to mess with. Then 1983, a huge year for him because he's in 4 movies. A movie that I kind of wanted to cover before we settled on Night and Day. I think this is maybe his most obscure movie in total, and that's the 1983 sex comedy Losing It, where he plays one of 4 high school buddies that include Jackie Earle Haley, the director of Dark Tide, and a 4th guy who never went on to do anything. But that's from Curtis Hanson, who went on to direct L.A. Confidential and 8 Mile, and it's just impossible to find. It basically doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, never saw it.
But if anyone wants to send us a DVD copy of Losing It, we will definitely thank you for that. He's also in the football movie, All the Right Moves. Yeah. He's in a movie we've talked about so many fucking times on this podcast.
The Outsiders.
Which is a bunch of
we know.
You know what? We've talked about it. We've fucking talked about it so many times. Moving on. But 1983, like his first primary lead role, and a movie that I still haven't seen, but it's obviously so tied to the DNA of Tom Cruise as a movie star, Risky Business,
Yeah.
where he does the slide in his underpants.
Yep.
And for most people, that's all they know about that movie. Most people don't realize that's a movie about him starting a brothel in his house while his parents are away.
Yeah.
Most people just know it as the movie where he does the little slippy slide.
It's a great movie, actually. It's a fun movie. Rebecca De Mornay's in that movie.
Oh, boy.
She's gorgeous in that movie.
One of the beauties of the 80s.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And they have some sexy scenes in that movie. And I think that, like, he took a lot of risks in that movie. And
It was risky business.
It was.
Hey,
And
that's
it
the
paid
title.
off.
It certainly paid off for him, yeah, because I feel like this is him really being like shot into the stratosphere. So 1985, a movie that doesn't really work for everyone involved, but I still kind of dig it, is the Ridley Scott film Legend.
Oh, I love Legend.
That I, of course, love because
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry's playing the devil, and he's got like the crazy horns, and he's like sexy devil man. And yeah, and Tom Cruise is the roguish hero who's out to save his lady love from the grasp of darkness.
Yeah.
And it's high fantasy in a way that only the 80s could give you. I want to love Legend. I only just kind of like it. You know, it's kind of an irregular film, but it's a great movie to look at with the sound off.
Oh, sure. I mean, he gives me Peter Pan vibes in that movie, which I really
Sure.
like. And I love the unicorns.
Yes.
And I love Tim Curry. And so, like, you can't go wrong for me.
When I was younger, I conflated Legend and Willow a lot.
Sure.
Now I don't. Now I feel like I know enough about the two of them that I don't make that mistake anymore. But
Fair.
yeah.
I think Willow's a much better movie.
Yes. So he goes from one of the Scott brothers directly to working with the other Scott brother, Tony Scott, with a little movie called Top Gun. Now, what's this one about? I don't feel like I've. Do you got any opinions on this? Biggest movie of the
man.
80s, practically.
Top Gun. You know, I think he's like 23 or 24 in that movie. He's super young in that movie, and he nails it. Oh man, like Tom Skerritt's in that movie. Kelly McGillis.
Yes.
Kelly McGillis went to Juilliard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Val Kilmer is in this movie.
Yes.
There's some
Anthony
great-
Edwards,
Oh, yeah.
Tim Robbins, Meg Ryan. Yeah, no, just an insane.
Well, Meg Ryan in one scene, but I know what you mean.
But she's in there, you
Yeah.
know. She's memorable.
Yeah, she's in there.
No, I think she's got a couple of because doesn't she?
Yeah, she has like a teary like.
Yeah.
He loved flying with you, Maverick. He loved flying.
He does love. But yeah, 86 is a huge year for him because Top Gun, which I should have double checked this, I think is the most financially successful movie of that year. But then he's also working with Martin Scorsese in The Color of Money, the sequel to The Hustler, which finally gets Paul Newman an Oscar, and he's the young up-and-coming pool hustler in that. But like now he's working with the biggest of big-name directors, it's something that he'll continue to do. But like Top Gun really is the thing that cements him as like Tom Cruise movie star, and he has never fallen off that pedestal. Like,
Yeah.
and so that's 86. You know, that's 6 years into his movie career, 5 years into his movie career, and that's how quickly it took for him to be above the title blockbuster entertainer Tom Cruise. So 1988, he follows that up with Cocktail, a movie that gave us the song Kokomo from the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
I've never seen that one. Thoughts on Cocktail?
Oh, Cocktail. Okay, he's great in this movie. It's fun. It ends up kind of dark and twisty with
Yes,
some stuff in
I
it.
heard that, yeah.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's a fun movie.
Yeah, and then continuing on working with prestige dramas, he's also the second lead in Rain Man, a movie which wins Best Picture and wins Dustin Hoffman his second Oscar, and he's the quote-unquote straight man of those two roles. Rain Man, a movie I've not seen in a very long time. I wonder how well it holds up, given the fact that Dustin Hoffman is portraying a man with developmental disabilities, but in a very showy Hollywood way. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't... Rain Man?
Yeah, it's been so long since
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's not one that I want to revisit. It makes me feel kind of sad.
It's a bummer of a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so speaking of Oscars, 1989, he gets his first Oscar nomination for Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July. Talk about depressing movies, but like it's the first time he really transforms himself as an actor because, you know, he's playing like a real guy who existed. He gives himself the balding wig where he's like losing his hair, but his hair's really long in the back and straggly or whatever. I feel like the second half of that movie, he's entirely in a wheelchair. So yeah, he's really stretching his dramatic chops there. Speaking of Tony Scott, he's back a couple of years later with 1990's Days of Thunder, the follow-up to Top Gun that did not really work all that well, but as we talked about on a recent episode, it is the movie where he meets a certain actress by the name of Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
And that is the beginning of that relationship. In 1992, you mentioned his second film with Nicole Kidman, Far and Away, the Ron Howard drama, where I think quite famously he has a pretty terrible Irish accent. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this?
I found
Better than Cameron Diaz's Irish accent in Gangs of New York.
Yes, I will
say that much.
I concur 100%. And I feel like, well, it's the Ron Howard touch, right? Like, it's just a beautiful movie through and through. And I thought his Irish accent was fine. I was all in for this movie. I don't know that they had a dialect coach on this movie,
Sure.
but he believed it and I bought it.
And you know, if you go in and you're that's the thing about Tom Cruise is confidence.
Yeah.
Above all else, like you can go in with like a terrible accent, but if you believe that that's how that character talks, you can trick an audience.
If we as a movie-going audience are willing to believe that he's over 5'8", then I think we can believe anything about the
Exactly.
guy.
That's the other thing we haven't been talking about is most of these movies he's on apple crates. Into his creative camera angles. Also in 1992, another movie nominated for Best Picture, A Few Good Men.
Love that movie.
Love A Few Good Men.
Every once in a while, I'll just put on the courtroom scene between him and Jack Nicholson. Like, what a great back and forth, tit-a-tat between those two actors. Yeah, great scene.
And another movie where the supporting cast is just second to none.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely chock full of ringers from beginning to end. 1993, a movie that I think is just so fucking watchable, The Firm.
Oh, yeah.
The Firm.
It's ridiculous, but it's great. It's the perfect antithesis of airport novel as a movie.
Yeah.
It's just a good John Grisham legal thriller. That's
Probably the second best John Grisham adaptation after A Time to Kill.
yeah, those are good. That's just a great double feature, regardless. 1994, Interview with the Vampire, we talked about last week. His is the better performance in that movie of compared to Brad Pitt. Like, he's really kind of cooking his Lestat. An interesting role for him to take on at that time in his career.
I agree. And there was a lot of pushback, I think, from the fans of the book. And I went in not having read the book yet, but I saw that show at the theater and I thought he was amazing. You know, I thought the whole show was so deeply gothic and like the choices were fantastic and I loved it.
And he's kind of playing not necessarily the antagonist, but he's playing like the character like you don't want to mess with. He's playing the danger.
Hey, it's
in
Lestat
that.
all the way.
Absolutely, and it works for him, yeah. 1996, a massive year for him. Two of his biggest hits. One, of course, is the movie that will cement his legacy as an action star for years to come. It's the first Mission Impossible. Speaking of movies we had on VHS as a kid, I wore that thing out. I watched that first Mission Impossible so many times. And,
So good.
And not once was I ever able to discern what was going on. That is still, to date, one of the most confusing movies you will ever see. But boy, is it fun. Boy, is it a fun time to watch.
Confusing. I picked up on it pretty quickly.
What's the knock list, James? Explain the knock list to me.
It's been years since I've seen it, but I remember being able to follow the plot and him being set up by my team.
Yeah, but also in 1996, it was a movie you mentioned earlier. Of course, it's also the year of Jerry Maguire. Yeah. That's his second Oscar nomination. Probably should have won for that. Tom Cruise has been nominated for 3 Oscars, and if he was ever closest to winning, I think it's probably for Jerry Maguire. I think I know I've used the word antithesis already, but that's like the antithesis of a Tom Cruise role.
And I think, too, it says something like Cuba Gooding Jr. won the Oscar for that movie. Just like Dustin Hoffman won. Like, his scene partners win Oscars.
His scene, exactly, you're right, yes.
And it means that he's right up there with them, you know?
I think Cuba won because he's the bigger, shoutier, showier role in that, but you're with Tom Cruise that entire movie. Like, he's never not like the focus of that movie. Well, sometimes Renee Zellweger is, but like but she's entirely focused on him. So like he really is kind of like crux of that movie. Do you like Jerry Maguire?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's a good watch.
It's one of those movies where it's like you say, it's got heart. You know, it's got a lot of heart and it's got a lot of quotable lines.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, you haven't seen it, but you know all the lines from that movie.
I name dropped, like, you complete me.
Yes.
Help me help you.
Show me the money.
That's right.
And then kind of going off of this, he's like fully in Tom Cruise actor actor mode, because 1999, another incredible double bill for him. Two movies that I would absolutely love to screen back to back. Eyes Wide Shut, the long in production Stanley Kubrick final movie. That's also his final movie with Nicole Kidman. Yeah, Eyes Wide Shut. A movie that I hadn't seen until maybe 5 years ago, and now I've seen it 3 times because it's just, it's so good. And a fun Christmas movie. To watch a weird Christmas movie.
I do actually think of it as a Christmas movie.
Yeah. But also in that year, he gets his 3rd and final Oscar nomination for Magnolia, his first for supporting actor. Just an absolutely brilliant performance for him. That's kind of playing off of the inherent sort of toxic masculinity that comes with his action roles and stuff like that. And he's just playing this really sheltered shell
of his day.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah, very much so, yeah. And it's just, we'll get to it because he is aging, he is getting older, he's firmly in action movie mode. It seems to be those are the only type of movies that he wants to make. Eventually, he will be too old to do the crazy stunts that he's doing. And when that happens, I would love for him to go back to being Tom Cruise, the actor.
Yeah,
because I haven't seen that flavor of him in a while.
Yeah. Magnolia is such a special movie for so many reasons, and the cast and the director and everything else. But I love the transformation of his character through that movie and the different scenes he's in. He changes a lot, this guy. I mean, he's such a hardcore, self-help guru, misogynistic. What does he say?
Respect the cock.
Respect the cock,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's that guy, and then all of a sudden, there's this big catharsis scene where he's on his
you
dad's
realize
deathbed.
why he's this way.
Yeah. And you see the layers,
I still don't get why the frogs were raining in that movie, but otherwise, it's an alright.
It's a metaphor.
It's a pretty overt thing that happens in that movie.
My absolute favorite part from him in that movie is when he's getting interviewed by the lady and he just stone silence, and she said, what are you doing right now? I'm silently judging you.
Oh, yeah.
Just goosebumps. Just an incredible delivery from him. 2000, he's in Mission Impossible 2. Pretty universally considered the weakest of the Mission Impossible movies, but that's him working with John Woo. There's some pretty memorable 2000s imagery associated with that movie of him free climbing the mountain, of him throwing the sunglasses at the camera and they explode.
That's all before the opening credits.
Yeah.
And that is literally all I know of that movie.
That's the only thing anyone remembers of it before the credits happened.
I remember I went to see that movie at the theater with my mom, and we saw him rock climbing, and he does this move where he ends up almost in a Jesus pose.
Yeah. Yes.
And I looked at my mom and she goes, "He's so hot." And I was like, "Mom, I know." And that's honestly all I remember from that movie is the beginning. Fantastic.
Yeah. I remember that, and I remember him and the villain have a fight on motorcycles.
Okay.
And they there's a lot of motorcycle on motorcycle action at the end of that movie. But the Mission Impossible movies, they only get better from there, which is a good place for a franchise to be in. Then 2001, he's back with the director of Jerry Maguire for Vanilla Sky, which is also his first pairing with Cameron Diaz, the star of this movie.
Yeah.
A very different movie than Night and Day.
Yeah.
A remake of a Spanish film called Open Your Eyes. Both of those films star Penelope Cruz. She was in the original, and she stars in the same role in the remake. And quite famously, she was something of his rebound relationship after Nicole Kidman, because I remember the marketing of that movie was very much centered on Cruz and Cruz. They burn up the screen off and on. And that is not a relationship that lasted very long.
Yeah, probably it's probably a good thing
Yeah.
for her. But
she traded up.
I mean,
Absolutely.
she did.
Yeah.
She did. That movie for me, it hit me so hard. I loved that movie when I first saw it, but I never go back to it because there's a melancholy to it that just got me in the guts,
True story, that was one of the first movies I ever took a girl on a date to see.
Yeah.
And it was actually my second time seeing it. I had seen it previously, and it's just... Because back then, it's just we'll go to whatever's at the multiplex, and just that was the only option of the day. And it's a very odd movie for two teenagers to go on a date to. Yeah, no, that of course is the movie where Cameron Diaz says to Tom Cruise, is when you sleep with someone, your body makes a promise, even if you don't. She also says, I swallowed your cum. It's a wild movie, Vanilla Sky. And you wouldn't think that they would want to sign up for another fun and flirty action adventure after what they had to do in that movie.
I actually like them better in that movie
Yeah.
than in Night and Day.
Well, yeah, because Cameron is playing a character.
Yeah.
And not just an action movie girl cipher or whatever. She's playing someone with mental issues not to find a point on it, but
Yeah,
Vanilla Sky, kind of a bummer. 2002, his first collaboration with Steven Spielberg is Minority Report, just an absolutely sensational science fiction movie. He also cameos in the what's up?
Oh, I've seen Minority Report.
Oh.
No. We're 34 minutes into this.
But we'll jump in if you have something to
we
say,
got no
by all
time.
means. He also cameos in the opening scenes of Austin Powers and Goldmember.
Mm-hmm.
It's the bait and switch where you think it's going to be Austin Powers, but no, it's Tom Cruise, and look at all these funny celebrities here, including Kevin Spacey. Ugh. 2003... Unfortunately, he is The Last Samurai, which is not great optics. Even though that movie's pretty good, that movie's pretty fun. But he had to be it. He had to be The Last Samurai, Sarah.
yeah. It wasn't my jam, but
I remember seeing that movie in theaters with my dad because he was it's not even like an adaptation of the Shogun novel, right? But
I don't think it's based on anything specific.
No, but I think my dad was like really into the book Shogun, and he was like, "Hey, let's go see The Last Samurai. It's Tom Cruise," and I'm like, "Sure." And I remember being fucking bored to tears with that movie.
Yeah, admittedly, Shogun, a better version of what The Last Samurai was trying to. Say your Minority Report thing, and I'll edit it in earlier.
No, we got no time.
All right, well, fine, there we go. Then I'm keeping it all in. 2004, one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances of all time, and one of, like, the definitive times he has played a bad guy. Michael Mann's Collateral.
Great fucking role for him.
Yeah.
I've never been more terrified of Tom Cruise. I love him in that movie. He should play more villains.
Absolutely.
And it's probably my favorite Michael Mann, too. Well, Heat... And then a very close second is Collateral.
Collateral is just a fantastic watch, and it's really it's the most he's ever really stretched himself in playing someone who just doesn't have any likable traits. He's just like
a smoldering intensity, and I'm just worried for Jamie Foxx the entire way through. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the weird thing about that movie is that movie came out the same year as Ray. So Jamie Foxx got nominated and won for Best Lead Actor for Ray, but then they also nominated him for Collateral for Supporting Performance, which is stupid because Jamie Foxx is the lead of that movie, and if anything, Tom Cruise is the supporting performance in the movie, and I think that should have been his 4th Oscar nomination.
I agree, yeah.
But they really fucked that up. They have a real issue, the Oscars, with putting black men in supporting roles that they aren't. They aren't supporting roles. They're the leads of the movie. They probably need to stop doing that.
You hear that, Hollywood?
Yeah, you're on blast. Coming straight from my lips to God's ears. 2005, he is back with Steven Spielberg for a movie that has a pretty unique legacy that kind of eclipses the movie itself. This is 2005's War of the Worlds, which I feel like more than anything is tied to the interview that he gives on Oprah, where he bounces on the couch and because it's on the press tour for that movie, War of the Worlds, that he announces he's dating Katie Holmes, and he's so in love, you guys. Oh my God, I can't even bother to tell you how much in love I am.
Yeah.
None of this is performative whatsoever. I'm so in love, Oprah, I'm gonna jump up and down on the couch. And that became the story for like the longest amount of time, and it led to so much unnecessary hate towards Katie Holmes, who did not deserve any of that.
I didn't catch any inkling that people were throwing some hate at Katie Holmes for that. I think everyone felt really sorry for her and really concerned for her because there was like that noticeably intense superficiality that came from Tom Cruise during all that I think everyone started to clue in that this guy's kind of weird and kind of intense in a bad way.
Like on the tail end of this, and I'm going to mention them again, off the tail end of that interview.
Certain organization.
He also has like that interview that he did for that church where he's like this was the thing that was like parodied, but I remember like Jerry O'Connell did like a parody of this where he's just talking about like the tenets and then he can't stop laughing. Do you remember this interview where he can't stop fucking laughing?
Yeah.
And it's just like, at this point in time, a lot of people were all like, Tom, you okay, buddy?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Something's up.
Good movies, though.
yeah. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about this era of Tom, the couch era?
Well,
we shall call it.
I mean, I was like in shock and awe with the whole couch thing, but sort of loved it because I was like, if only Tom Cruise felt that way about me.
I could change him.
Yeah, I would help him escape. But then, he right in and around that moment, he pulls Katie Holmes out of the wings. Like clearly, she's like waiting for him on Oprah, doesn't want to come out, and pulls her out, and her face is all like a little bit pinky red, like they'd been necking or something for like half an hour before he went on the show.
They didn't touch her up
like
to be on camera.
She wasn't ready to be on camera, and I thought, that is odd. You know what I mean? But then
it's like the makeup person came over and Tom was like, no makeup for her!
Yeah, like, I mean, it felt weird, but I also was like, look, with people who have big emotions, people who are expressive, and like maybe this is like a really in love feeling. Who knows? I mean, things got crazy.
What he thinks is love.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, she certainly had to plot her way out, and it took a long time.
She certainly made an escape plan to get out of that relationship.
Yeah,
yes, and and he has like a lot of adopted kids, and a lot of them don't really talk to him. Well, some of them talk to him, some of them don't talk to Nicole Kidman because she's a suppressive person or whatever. But anyway, that's all we need to really touch on that. 2006, Mission Impossible 3. That's where J.J. Abrams enters the franchise, and he kind of sculpts the way that the future ones will go. That definitely has my favorite villain. That's the Philip Seymour Hoffman one. I think that's the best. That's the best villain of all the films, I think. Yeah.
MI3 is really like the watershed moment for that franchise. I really like the first one. Second one was a noticeable dip. And then 3 is the one that really corrected the ship and said, like, no, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be upping the ante on the Bond spy genre, where we're just going to follow him in all these international espionage things. Big stunts that he always does himself. And I'm kind of of two minds of him doing that because, yes, like, you want to buy the ticket to see Tom Cruise actually do these stunts. It's like the same reason I fucking love Jackie Chan movies. At the same time, he gets injured on a set. That's the entire production out of work. So I kind of don't like seeing that, and I don't like buying the tickets to support that. But goddamn, are those movies just not an absolute crowd pleaser?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if you don't buy tickets to see Tom Cruise do specifically that, guess what? You're not watching a Tom Cruise movie because that's what he does for all of the movie. That's become the Tom Cruise oeuvre, is all like, look how fast I can run. Look at this crazy shit that I'm doing.
For a guy in his 60s, too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to run out of steam eventually, but anyway, we'll get there.
Now he's going to outlive us all somehow.
One way or another.
Blood.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got two movies back to back here that conceivably could have been movies we covered on the podcast. They are kind of the nothing. This is sort of the nothing movie era of Tom Cruise, but I'm vetoing both of these this episodes. One, because it sounds really boring. The other one for reasons. 2007, he's in the political drama Lions for Lambs, which is him, Robert Redford, and Meryl Streep. And it's just like a war. Yep, it's a war on terror drama and whatever. And he's like in a suit, and Meryl Streep is interviewing him. You couldn't care less. Sorry, Tom. Sorry, Meryl. Sorry, everyone involved. Then in 2008, he's in the World War II drama Valkyrie. That is directed by noted bad person Bryan Singer. And it's a drama about like a bunch of people who tried to kill Hitler, and it didn't work. And it's just a movie, and you just realize as you're watching it, and it's all like, there are no stakes. There's no stakes to this movie because I know how it ends. I know they don't kill Hitler. And this
isn't an Inglourious Bastard situation.
Exactly, yeah. And it just does that thing where, so it's a movie with lots of British actors
and an American actor,
all
to be German
officers, but no one's doing an accent. No one's even bothering to do an accent for that, which again isn't like an absolute must or whatever, but it does make the movie kind of hilarious. But
yeah, laugh a minute.
He has like a minor little comeback in between all of this with a cameo that he does in Tropic Thunder.
Jesus Christ, I remember watching that movie in theaters with my buddies on the opening night, and the entire audience was just howling at the Les Grossman performance, and everyone in this theater, I could sense it, had like this, who is that guy? I recognize the voice. He kind of looks familiar. Who is this guy? And then it was during like the last credits where everyone's like waiting on bated breath, watching him bust out those dance moves, and then it was like, and Tom Cruise, and everyone went, holy shit! Yeah. I think that is one of his best performances.
It's a great cameo. It's really like a classic example of like something you can only do once. I remember he busted it out again for like the MTV Video Awards or something, and it's just,
and the magic was gone.
And he does the dance, and it's all like,
surprise was gone. Yeah,
it's like recently where Ryan Gosling and Mikey Day did Beavis and Butthead on SNL, and then they brought that back for the premiere of The Fall Guy, and it's like, no, got one time.
Yeah,
you can do this one time, and if you ever bring it back, it's not funny anymore. But yeah, he's pretty funny. He's pretty funny in that movie.
Every scene he's in.
Yeah,
I knew it was him. I did.
You recognize that ass. You recognize that ass underneath the fat suit.
That's right. Yeah.
So 2011. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. That's the one directed by Brad Bird. That's the one that brings Jeremy Renner in. It's solid. Yeah, like from this point on, the Mission Impossible movies just continue to be solid and just kind of like continue. I don't know. Like while I'm kind of stopped here, like Sarah, Jim, do either of you have like a particularly? Do you have like a favorite Mission Impossible?
I think more than favorite movies is like moments, like different stunts and like like the beginning of Mission Impossible 2. Like if I had to pick a moment, that's probably my favorite moment in the whole thing. But like for me, the Mission Impossible movies tend to blend.
They do. It's a bit of a blend.
Yeah, and I like remember villains, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Like we've already discussed.
Everyone remembers fucking Henry Cavill doing the arm pump thing in that one movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Reloading his fists.
Yeah. But that's you're absolutely right. Like those movies really do blend, and like I'm never having a bad time watching any of those movies.
Exactly.
But yeah, they're pretty interchangeable, but in a serviceable way where you don't mind. You don't walk away thinking like that was a waste of my time.
No, it's a good bet. Like if you want to watch an action movie, go for one of those.
So 2012, he's in Rock of Ages, a pretty terrible movie.
No,
that he's pretty good in.
I love Rock of Ages.
Fair enough. Hey, fair enough.
You know what? For me, it's his entrance in that movie where he's like draped in sexy women and like in chaps, and he's playing Stacey Jack's crazy like rock star, a la like Bon Jovi era, right? Like
over the top,
Steven Tyler era, Axl Rose era, like Poison, all those kinds of bands.
But disappointingly, in the stage version of Rock of Ages, Stacey Jax is meant to be a full-out villainous character without any sort of redemption or whatever, and they soften it for the movie because it's all like, well, we can't have Tom Cruise be like a bad touch creepazoid. It's like, even though he's played a villain before, it would have been interesting to see them follow that through or whatever. But no, they give him like a little romantic arc or whatever. It's like, oh, Stacey Jax got a happy ending too.
That was probably a mandate from Tom Cruise himself.
I think at this point in time, it's more about the overall image that he's projecting or whatnot. But I remember that movie is sold on Tom Cruise is seen in a movie, and he's pretty good. He's never attempted it again, but like he could do a musical if he wanted to.
He for sure could, because this is the thing with Tom Cruise. Like he probably rehearsed for 5 hours a day for half a year or something to learn how to sing like that, right?
Now, this is a significant movie for him because it is the start of the longest collaboration that he's ever had, the one that yields the most fruit. Something really interesting has happened with this movie. Also in 2012, he does Jack Reacher, which is a really solid action movie. I really love it. I think it's got a great supporting cast. Werner Herzog is the villain.
Out of nowhere is the villain.
It's got some really awesome action in it, and it's the first time that he has worked with writer-director Christopher McQuarrie, who will go on to inherit the Mission Impossible franchise, and also basically does screenplay touch-ups on every Tom Cruise movie. He's like Tom Cruise's Svengali at this point, or Tom Cruise is his. Like, Christopher McQuarrie has become Tom Cruise's guy. Like he is like somewhat involved either on a producing standpoint or a screenplay standpoint on every Tom Cruise movie from this point forward. But the interesting thing, of course, is that Tom Cruise, like one of the biggest celebrities and movie stars on the planet, did a movie adaptation of Jack Reacher that has far been eclipsed by the Reacher TV show now. No, you say Reacher, no one thinks of Tom Cruise anymore. They immediately think of Alan Ritchson.
I could not get into that Jack Reacher movie. That felt to me like a Tom Cruise vanity project.
Oh, absolutely.
He does not look the part. Never bought for a second that all the women were attracted to him and that all the men were afraid of him, or that in any given situation he was always on top of his game the entire way through, and I just couldn't buy into it. I thought it was ridiculous in a bad way. I was gobsmacked that Werner Herzog agreed to be in this movie.
I think it's interesting. I think I would like to talk to the Tom Cruise. But yeah, it's wild to go back and watch it now, because now everyone is more aware of the fact that Reacher is supposed to be like this mountain of a man.
Yeah.
And then they cast like literally one of Hollywood's smallest actors to play it. But there's still some good stuff in that first Reacher movie. I love it when he takes that guy's head and he beats a man to death with, like he beats a man to death with another man. It's crazy. I love that movie. Is wild. 2013, he's in the sci-fi drama Oblivion, which I've seen. I remember basically nothing about. Maybe we should have covered that.
I would refuse to watch that.
It's just like your boilerplate standard sci-fi stuff, but it hooks him up with director Joseph Kosinski, who he will work with later on. 2015, Rogue Nation, the first Mission Impossible, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, and the one that introduces one of my favorite characters to the franchise, Ilsa Faust. 2016, the sequel to Jack Reacher, Never Go Back. Maybe we should have covered that.
Yeah.
That is maybe the most forgotten Tom Cruise movie, is the sequel to Jack Reacher. No one liked that one.
I do not recall that movie.
Yep.
I just do not recall.
That just proves how nothing it is.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist. 2017, arguably his worst movie, The Mummy. And a movie that even Tom Cruise can't save at all. Just like an absolute boondoggle.
Dead on arrival.
Undead on arrival.
Hey.
The start of the Universal's dark universe.
Start and end of it.
Nothing is more You've seen The Mummy, right?
Yeah, I saw it once.
Do you you remember how that
Did
movie?
you see the whole way through?
I saw it the whole way through. I honestly don't remember.
Do you remember how that movie starts with the Universal logo, and then the logo keeps going, and then the planet turns around, and then it says Dark Universe? They were all in on this. Like, they famously...
Oh, they did that cast photo of, like, Javier Bardem and Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
And it was just like, here's all the stars that are going to be in our movies. And they had no scripts greenlit.
Yeah.
They had no directors lined up.
They later found out that those people in that picture were not in the same room together.
Yeah.
They just copy and pasted everyone together in the room. Yeah. The Mummy, absolutely his biggest disaster. But it didn't keep him down for very long. Also in 2017, he's in the movie American Made, which I never saw. What's that one about?
Oh,
He's a drug smuggler.
He's a drug smuggler.
He's a pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
But he's a likable drug smuggler, right? Yeah, that's the thing. He can't play anyone with, like, gray morals or anything like that,
No,
right?
I feel like the hit I get from that movie that I remember, because I only saw it once. If I've only seen a Tom Cruise movie once, then it wasn't for
Right.
me. But was
Only
that
3 stars.
He was like continuously lit by sunshine and always wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
That's what I get from that movie.
Yeah, and I remember the woman who played his wife was way too young looking for late 50s Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
She looked like she was in her early 20s,
Yeah.
mid-20s.
Well, it feels like he took that note, because in 2022, when he does Top Gun Maverick, his love interest is Jennifer Connelly, who is a lot more closer in age to him. So I think maybe he is taking that note and he is running with it, necessary to say. But yeah, after that, 2018, Mission Impossible Fallout, then Top Gun Maverick, which saved movie theaters.
Yeah.
And basically brought people back to cinemas and made people fall in love with the movie theaters all over again, and inexplicably got nominated for Best Picture, which it completely deserved.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
A phenomenal movie, an absolutely fantastic movie.
Practical effects extravaganza. You felt you were right there in the cockpit.
Yeah,
Great
and
movie.
he's right there in the cockpit too. He does the stunt, he does the flying, he does it all. He does everything. And then most recently, a film is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, a movie that they have announced the sequel to will not be called Dead Reckoning Part 2, which just means that there will be a movie out there called Part 1 with no second part of it.
Isn't that movie, like, famously over budget because they, being like the madman that he is who wants to do all his own stunts, didn't they, like, rent out an actual military submarine for stunts? And it's, like, blown movies way out of budget.
Seems legit.
Yeah.
Is it that movie or Fallout where he broke his foot on a...
I think it was Fallout.
And you can see it in the movie. You can see, like, his ankle just shatter.
Yeah, landing on the building,
Yeah,
on the side of the
yeah,
building.
and they left it in the movie. Yeah, but yeah, that's what we're starting to see that blend into, like, the movies now, like the actual damage to Tom Cruise's body is making it to the final
mortal!
cut. Exactly.
We can kill him!
But I heard that for some digital re-releases of that movie, they're just going to remove the part 1 from it. And I'm not a big fan of splitting movies into different parts either. I actually think it's really quite terrible for the artistic statement. But also, fuck off. You made that choice. You made the choice to call it Part 1. You don't get to go back now. You decided that was going to be your artistic statement, that this was going to be a Part 1, Part 2. You don't get to just go like, actually, never mind. Oh, and I fucked this up. Maybe I'll re-edit this in.
You forgot to mention Edge of Tomorrow.
I forgot to mention Edge of Tomorrow, which is another
great movie.
A great
Fantastic
movie.
That's the one with Emily Blunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
I
time
love
travel
that movie.
sci-fi one. Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot to mention that because that's one of his best action movies, one of his best output in recent years.
Yeah, and it's so funny that it came right around the same time as Oblivion. So
Yeah.
I think people were looking at that as like, I memory hold Oblivion, but I remember loving
Yes.
Edge of Tomorrow, even though it should have been called Live, Die, Repeat.
I couldn't disagree with you more.
Oh.
I think that's a terrible title, Live, Die, Repeat.
all right.
I mean, Edge of Tomorrow isn't great either. But you've heard the story of this, Sarah, have
Can
you?
you tell it in less than 5 minutes?
Well, it's the fact that, like, on the DVD release of that movie, the tagline for Edge of Tomorrow was Live, Die, Repeat. And whoever was designing the DVD cover for it made the title of the movie really small font, and it made the tagline giant fucking letters. So when the movie came out on DVD, people who didn't go to see it in the movie theater assumed there's this new Tom Cruise movie out called Live, Die, and Repeat.
Oh.
And rather than correct people, the producers are leaning into it, so much so that a sequel is in development, which is called Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat. Which you have to admit is a terrible name for a movie.
Sure, as a sequel, yeah, but I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the movie with a title like Live, Die, Repeat. What the fuck does Edge of Tomorrow mean?
Well,
we're on the edge of tomorrow right now.
It is true. You're not wrong. Absolutely. I will also point out that that movie is based on a graphic novel that's called All You Need Is Kill.
Yeah, that's the worst title of them all.
No, that's the best title of them all. What are you saying? Yeah, and then coming up for Mr. Cruise, he's got the 8th Mission Impossible film in the can. He's apparently going to do a remake of the Clint Eastwood film The Gauntlet. He has sequels to Edge of Tomorrow and Top Gun. And most notably, he and Doug Liman, the director of Edge of Tomorrow, are apparently going to be filming a movie in space.
Yeah, I heard about that.
This is a movie that they have announced that is produced by Elon Musk that will be partially filmed in outer space. So he survived so much. We will see if he will be able to survive the cold vacuum of the unforgiving space.
Hey, for something that sounds that astronomically expensive, you may as well get the biggest movie star of all time to headline.
Yeah, if anyone's going to do it.
Yeah. And his own stunts.
Two things will happen. That movie will come out and it will change the game again, or Tom Cruise will get sucked out of the
that'll be
spaceship,
a massive tragedy.
and he'll end up being a martyr for his bullshit
He
religion.
died as he lived, crazily.
He's with Xenu now,
Yeah.
where he always wanted to be.
And with that was the Tom Cruise filmography.
Wow, so you've seen basically all of these movies.
I didn't watch and I feel bad because it's Meryl Streep, but I didn't watch the one with Meryl Streep.
No one has.
No
one would.
I was like, it's on my list, but I never got to it.
No.
And I'm real fuzzy on all of the Mission Impossible movies.
Sure, like you said, there's some blending there, yeah.
But yeah, I think I saw just about everything in there.
Well,
yeah.
I know you saw Night and Day because we had to watch it.
We forced you to do it.
That was the assignment.
Yeah.
And so we'll take a little break, and when we come back, we'll delve right into that movie and all of the memorable things that happen in it.
So stay tuned, everyone. To tackle Sigourney Weaver for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no and now that we've opened up what movies we're covering, we'll be able to find a Sigourney movie to cover, fairly certain. But we're not on that train right now. We're on the Tom Cruise Express. We're back and we're here to talk about 2010's Night and Day, a movie that had a very tumultuous production. It went through, as I mentioned, it had like 12 screenwriters. Only one of them ended up credited for Writers Guild America rules or whatnot, but it went through a couple of different life cycles. It originally started off as a movie called Wichita, and it was first offered to Adam Sandler, of all people.
Oh, very different vibe.
Yes, he turned it down because he reportedly said, I can't imagine myself with a gun. Even though I feel like he's fired guns in movies before. Bulletproof, for one. It's because he's bulletproof.
He was the Zohan. He was a secret agent.
He was the Zohan, exactly.
Yeah.
And come to think of it, that movie came out shortly after that one did. So
Oh.
maybe it's all like, you know what? I've changed my mind. I'm speaking as the Zohan at this moment. Anyway, then after that, it was retitled as Trouble Man, and it became a vehicle for Chris Tucker and Ava Mendes. So, an interesting sort of like what could have been projection for this movie. Then after they drop out, and I think it becomes settled with the title of Night and Day, Diaz signs on. Cameron Diaz signs on before Tom Cruise does for this movie. And originally it was supposed to be Diaz and Gerard Butler.
Interesting.
But then he drops out to do The Bounty Hunter with Jennifer Aniston. It's kind of a similar movie, not nearly as successful as this one was. A movie that was that successful, actually. Around this time, Tom Cruise, Wikipedia says he was auditioning for parts in films. I can't imagine he auditions all that much. I feel like they just give him roles. But he was debating whether or not to do... First, it looked like he was going to do Salt, a movie that later was rewritten to star Angelina Jolie. And then after that, he was considering doing The Tourist, another movie that also ended up starring Angelina Jolie, although I imagine he was going out for the Johnny Depp role. But in both cases, he decided to do Night and Day over that one because he felt that it was sort of like a take on like his Mission Impossible franchise, but with a slightly more comedic element. Apparently, he had a lot of contributions to the script. To his character.
To sort of take it away from Ethan Hunt and more towards Tom Cruise's public persona.
More or less, yeah. I mean, this does feel like a comedic Mission Impossible to a certain extent. Sure. In the sense that it's, he's a secret agent and he's going around and he's doing his things. Night and Day, directed by James Mangold. Just like one of like the most incredible workman-like careers in Hollywood. He's done so many different genres. He's directed films like Copland, Girl Interrupted, Kate and Leopold, which also stars Viola Davis. I was reminded that when I was watching this, Viola was in this. And then I've never seen Kate and Leopold. Have you seen?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I remember the trailer for Kate and Leopold. There's a moment where Hugh Jackman's time traveler is walking a little dog, and the dog poops, and then a police officer comes up to him and says, "I suggest you pick the poop up." And it wasn't until years later that I realized that's Viola Davis. So anyone who, like, you think your career is stalled or anything like that, just remember, Viola Davis at one point in time told Hugh Jackman to pick the poop up.
I feel like you've brought this up on another episode.
Because it's an amazing anecdote. I love it.
But we're not here to talk about Kate and Leopold.
All
we're
right.
here to talk about Night and Day.
He directed that. He directed Identity. He directed Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic. So he's directed two people to Oscars, Angelina Jolie for Girl Interrupted and Reese Witherspoon for Walk the Line. He also swooped in to save the Wolverine franchise at one point because he directed The Wolverine and Logan. So I think that's interesting that the guy who saved the Wolverine franchise from becoming irrelevant also directed Kate and Leopold. And most recently, he directed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Which people didn't seem to like, but hot take, I think is okay. I think it's totally watchable. Yeah, just like one of like the most like expansive careers of any director working currently in Hollywood right now. And then in 2010, he directed Night and Day, a movie that doesn't really do favors for anyone involved. It's the most medium movie that exists.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do we think? What do we think of this of this film?
I think I kind of said it. Like, the first leg of the movie is just watching an insane Tom Cruise. A secret agent stalker is essentially what happens in the first.
There's some big stalker vibes in this. Yeah.
For the first like 45 to an hour minute, and then the last leg of it is just your standard comedic spy thriller. That's my take. That's my hot take on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only take you can have. I'm sure there's people who love this movie, but it's hard to get super enthusiastic for it.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a hard movie to love, but not a hard movie to like. Mm-hmm. Like, I liked it. I was distracted by Cameron Diaz, who's like acting the shit out of this movie, but like I cannot buy her in this movie to save my life. She does not look like a girl next door with a smudge on her brow because she's been fixing a car.
Well, she's also a mechanic. That is her job. That is her career in this film.
I don't buy it. I don't believe for one second she knows how to do a wrench with a carburetor with a garburator with the.
That's how it works.
You know what I mean?
With the carburetor. That's one hell of a mechanic.
Yeah, I don't buy her at all in this movie. But I feel like she's trying so hard. She's working with what she's got.
Well, it doesn't help the matters to me trying to get invested in this movie when she talks to herself a lot. She kind of stops the plot dead every once in a while to say what should be implied by the scene and what her face is telling us.
It's like an hour from here. Maybe it's a safe house. Movement alert. 5826 Amapola. That's a 67 Grand Prix. I know, of course you're not. You're gonna walk right through that door. You're gonna get right up on. It's not your first rodeo, woman. It's just another day. It's just a normal day.
Yeah.
And it's not her fault. You know what I mean?
No,
it's
that's what she was told to read, yeah.
I felt like what they needed was Goldie Hawn from circa Bird on a Wire to play that character. Do you know what I mean?
That's definitely the vibe they're going for. If you want to go even earlier than that, there's sort of vibes of Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn in Charade and stuff like that. Just this very light caper type affair or whatever, where it's the plot isn't really that important. It's just two attractive people having fun.
Yeah, but the thing is these two attractive people having fun are professional actors who are very good at their work, but I don't really get the sizzle. I don't get the chemistry between them. I feel like they're in there hitting their marks, doing what they're supposed to do, and Cameron Diaz just giving it everything she's got. I don't believe it.
Tom and Cameron seem more like friends.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
whatever, but sometimes you get actors together and it's just you can't stop watching them. You're rooting for them. You love them. You want it to work out. And this, I was like, this is a movie and this is what we're working with.
That is largely the rest of this podcast will be new ways of us trying to find ways of saying this was a movie. It certainly was. I will mention that there is reportedly a slightly longer cut of this movie.
I think that's the one that I watched because I watched it on Amazon Prime and the only one I could find had the big extended cut on it.
Yes.
And I watched it, and it was only it was still less than 2 hours. It was only an hour 49 minutes of it. But I assume that is the extended cut.
Okay, that's interesting because I watched this off of Apple TV. Where did you watch it?
I did the Amazon Prime.
The Amazon Prime. Okay,
and only realized afterwards that it said extended cut.
Okay,
I was that's weird.
So interesting. So you two watched the extended cut. I think I watched the original theatrical cut. Apparently, the only thing that they added was more of Cameron Diaz's mechanic job. More scenes to flesh out.
There's one scene of that.
Okay, well maybe I don't know.
We'll bring it up.
Apparently they added more to explain. It's all I didn't realize until midway through. I thought she was sort of a hobbyist, and then she goes back to the garage and she starts using the office like she owns the place. I'm like, I guess she works. I guess she owns the place. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, the movie didn't really make that clear enough early on.
Which makes it funny for me because the movie opens with Tom Cruise acting the fool at an airport, and he zeroes in on Cameron Diaz realizing, she's going to Boston because he recognizes a Red Sox sticker on her luggage, and he also needs to get to Boston. But she is transporting car parts in her carry-on luggage. That seems like the sort of thing you would have delivered by airmail, or you'd have shipped that you wouldn't have to wheel through airport security.
But she's on a tight time frame because she's got to get back for her fitting for her sister's wedding and everything. So she's specifically gone down here for parts for this vintage car that their father have left them, because as she states in the movie, Kansas has the best scrap. Which I'm sure Kansas is thrilled. That's what they have on when you drive through. It's all Kansas,
home of the scrap,
yards. Everyone loves it. Yeah.
So Tom Cruise keeps pulling off these funny meet cute scenarios with Cameron Diaz that we eventually realize is him. This whole opening is fucking preposterous.
Of course it is.
So he is trying to prevent her from getting on the same plane that he's getting on because he knows there's going to be some rogue agent. No, he's labeled as the rogue agent.
Well,
right?
I think what happens is he is a rogue agent. He doesn't have a plane ticket because that would have been flagged by the government agency or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's pickpocketed her ticket and replaced it with a ticket for a different flight.
Yeah.
So that when she tries to get on the flight,
she's bumped from that flight.
Yes.
And then at that point, you know, they've had these multiple encounters where they're just bumping into each other and having like, oh, silly meme kind of moments. And then his last line to her is, things happen for a reason. Now, at this point, if the same stranger bumps into me like 3 or 4 times, and then like I'm super inconvenienced and they say things happen for a reason, and then they fuck off onto the plane that I'm supposed to be going on, I'm like, hold the fucking phone here.
You know what? I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm going to give myself as much distance as possible from this strange man that I've just met. Yes. But he's so handsome. I have to go. I have to lean into this.
Kind of charms his way onto it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets onto that plane, and then the government agents that are monitoring Tom Cruise at this point, they say, like, hey, he's having these random encounters with this other person. She must be a cohort of his. Let's finagle the system here to get her back on that plane.
Now, I think this is one of the film's biggest faults that it does early on, is that it has this early scene that introduces Peter Sarsgaard as Fitz, the rival agent that's trying to track down Tom Cruise's Roy, and also Viola Davis as the...
As basically Amanda Waller.
As basically Amanda... in a role that she could truly play in her sleep. She might have not woken up for this movie. She might have just gotten a nap while she's playing this role. Not that she's bad, it's just like this is the most Viola Davis role you can give her. But there's just like this one scene of them saying like, oh, we found Tom Cruise. Oh, we'll do all this. I think this is introducing these characters way too early.
I think so, yeah.
We need to have more of a mystery about Roy.
Yeah.
And it's sort of ruined by the fact that you've cast Tom Cruise, but there needs to be this element of danger to him. The movie needs to be more from June's perspective overall, but certainly in like the first act of the movie. We need to not be able to know where we stand with the Roy character. And I mean, and just through like economy of casting, you know, you have Peter Sarsgaard as the rival agent or whatever. Like, just, I mean, I had seen this movie before, but even I'm certain, like, the movie that the first time I watched it, I'm all like, oh, okay, Peter Sarsgaard's the villain. Of course he is.
Yeah.
That's why you cast him in that. But yeah, I think including this kind of lets the audience know, it's all like, don't worry, Tom will find a way to make everything right. He'll come out, he'll win in the end.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I felt like he was the good guy the whole time. He had it under control. He has the whole thing in hand, which is what he tells her all the time. He's like, stay calm, it's for your safety, it's for your protection. You know, I'm doping you.
Yeah.
She gets poisoned so much in this movie. It's kind of a problem. This movie definitely goes to some problematic places.
Oh, 100%. And I can't wait to get into one of my favorite, one of my favorite talking points about this movie.
Yes.
So yeah, they're on the plane together, and they're having like, they're flirting back and forth, talking about like their history, how she's going to her sister's wedding, how Tom Cruise is lamenting the fact that, you know, he's never really settled down or anything. And she excuses herself to go to the airplane washroom, where she's hyping herself up of like, maybe I'll just have like a one-night stand with this guy or whatever. During this whole sequence, the other people on the plane are undercover agents, and they're having their big brawl with Tom Cruise.
Every single person on the plane is like a secret agent.
Like the flight crew, even.
The flight crew, the pilot, everyone has like a secret gun. Everyone is trying to stop Tom Cruise from doing the thing. I mean, the other thing is that they bumped Cameron from the original flight because they said that we weren't able to find a seat for you.
And the entire flight is empty.
Yeah, there's only like there's 7 people on the flight. Again, this should be another massive red flag for Cameron Diaz, but she just sits down and it's all like, oh, it's Gil on the rocks, please.
My mother worked for Air Canada, so I was fortunate enough to go on a lot of standby flights as a kid. I know that planes generally don't take off until they're like almost at capacity. You will never find yourself on a flight that fucking empty. But yeah, so Tom Cruise is using seatbelts as nunchucks and seats as shields and everything. And then when she comes out of the washroom, he's like, kill the pilots, but the plane isn't quite going down yet. And then
it's on autopilot, so you know it takes a second.
But he's like, hey, hang on a second, I gotta go land the plane. And she's like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And what I would have loved if instead of seeing that entire
I'm on the same page as you.
Instead of seeing that entire opening action sequence, we didn't see that happen.
Completely agree.
And she gets back to her seat, and then there's that amazing cut where the plane kind of banks a little too far to the left, and all the corpses fall out of their seats. That would have been an amazing cut.
That needs to be the moment where we as the audience go like, oh, wait, what's up with this guy? What's going on? Yeah, and we need to have that tension at least until the midway point of the movie. Like, you need to have like this constant question of all like, is Roy like this crazy rogue agent or whatever, or is this like a big misunderstanding and he's being like framed up or whatever.
Yeah.
And her coming out of the bathroom and then all of a sudden everyone else on the plane is dead.
Yeah.
That's a great way of showcasing this. Yeah. I'm going to bring this point up now because I think it's relevant to what we're talking about or whatever. So, like, Tom Cruise's character, Roy, has been framed by Peter Sarsgaard's agent. He wants the MacGuffin of the story or whatever, and he's now framed it that Tom Cruise is the bad guy. And
he's gone rogue, yeah.
He's trying to steal. He's a rogue agent, but, like, we watch this entire movie with the understanding that he's being framed and he's on the side of good. Tom Cruise kills a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's
a lot of federal agents.
It's reasonable to assume that some of them are working for Peter Sarsgaard. Some of them might just be like guys.
Yeah.
Some of them might just be like actual like government agents who are just doing their job. And Tom Cruise slaughters them mercilessly throughout the movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like that standard action thing where it's like, don't think too hard about this, otherwise it all kind of falls apart and it paints your lead character in not a great light.
Except when he shoots Rodney in the thigh. And he's like,
Yes.
it's just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't hit the femoral artery. You're good to go. It's going to be better for you than whatever. Like, it's the only time he shows some, like, discernment between like, shots. Like
Right.
shooting to kill or shooting to wound.
Rodney, who we'll get to, is Cameron Diaz's ex-boyfriend. I mean, like, he's full-on a civilian. He's not like a government agent with a gun or anything like that. So if Tom iced him, then that's the point of no return. Then he's just a villain. But Tom Cruise don't play that. He played that one time, and everyone liked it, and he said never again.
I kept waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, the amazing twist of the movie is that, like, the entire time Tom Cruise is not who he says he is. The feds are the good guys, and Tom Cruise is this independently wealthy, crazy guy who's
That would be a more interesting movie.
orchestrated this whole elaborate thing to entrap and stalk Cameron Diaz for this, like, bonkers plot of his. I think a mistake from this movie is all of the crazy shenanigans that Tom Cruise is getting up to. You can't cast anyone in this movie and not have this main action hero guy come off as anything but crazy. And the fact that you cast Tom Cruise in this role is really doing it a disservice.
Yeah, except it works in certain scenes.
It works in that it plays off
His mania. Yeah.
perception of Tom Cruise being a crazy person.
Yes, which we all know at this point is part of his personality. So yeah, when he leans into that, the movie's more interesting.
Yeah.
So he commandeers the airplane.
Yeah, they crash land into a cornfield, narrowly missing on a trucker who's rocking like a hurricane.
A little bit of IMDb trivia that I really liked. Apparently that trucker was just one of the lighting grips, and the actor didn't show up that day, and they were just all like, "You look like a trucker." That dude killed it for not being an actor. He was bopping to the music. He was good.
Yeah. They safely crash land the plane into a cornfield. It's going to make the news, but he says to Cameron Diaz, just so you know, there's going to be some feds coming after you. Don't trust anything they say. They're going to say they're going to take you to a secure location, but they're probably going to kill you. They're probably going to tell you that I'm insane and I've gone rogue. And also I've drugged you.
Yes. This is the first of many, many times Cameron Diaz is in and out of unconsciousness throughout that movie. There is a lot of non-consensual stuff happening to her throughout this movie, and it's a bit of a problem. I'm not gonna lie, but she wakes up in her house, which is interesting because I was under the assumption that the plane crash landed in a field. So I don't know how Roy got her to her house. I guess he's a secret agent.
Completely unconscious,
Yeah.
at the dead of night.
But he had enough time to get her to the house, put her in her bed,
find out where she lived.
make her an omelet.
Yeah.
Leave a series of Post-it notes.
Yeah.
She wakes up and he leaves a Post-it note. It's all like, gotta have a good breakfast. He opens it. There's an omelet in there. Who knows when he made that? That's probably stone cold by now.
Yeah,
that omelet's no good.
She comes out and there's just like all this black smoke coming from her kitchen.
He didn't. It's like, I'll just keep it on low. That's how omelets work, right? Yeah, burns it to a crisp. And she's all like, oh, what a weird situation. But I should maybe unpack this a little bit more than I currently am. But
gotta get to the dress fitting.
gotta get to the dress fitting. That's the main important thing.
Yeah. And then, wouldn't you know it, the feds show up at the dress fitting. And they say, hey, Cameron Diaz, can you come with us, please? And she already breaks, like, one of the first things he said, like, don't get into any vehicle. Like, he hammers that home to her once or twice. You think at this point, she'd realize that she's a character in a movie.
It takes her like 14 seconds to break the don't get into a vehicle or these guys are going to kill you. She gets in the vehicle. And my mind is screaming. I'm like, really? Really?
There's a lot of guys, though. Like, the way Tom Cruise says it is all like, a couple of guys in a car are going to come pick you up. Like, 17 guys show up. Yeah. So it's kind of hard for her to say no. Also, they kind of set up this little micro issue with, like, her sister, because she's restoring, like, their dad's old car, and she wants to give it to her sister as a wedding present. And then at the fitting, her sister says, do you think we could sell Dad's car? And she doesn't realize that Cameron Diaz is going to give it to her as a gift. And she kind of has like this moment where she's feeling maybe like a little hurt about that, or a little confused. Her sister also named April, by the way. So we got April and we got June here. Just there we go. Creative parenting there. Yeah. No, we don't talk about May. Yeah, don't bring up May. May's the black sheep of the family. But
or August.
Or August. Yeah, they have a brother named August. But she does. She gets into the car with Peter Sarsgaard, and they immediately say all the things that Tom Cruise said that they would say. And
she's like, hey, wait a minute.
And she's like, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to be proactive. And then she doesn't have to be proactive because Tom Cruise shows up on a motorcycle and starts killing everyone with a machine gun.
I will say I do like the cut of the motorcycle coming up from behind on the adjacent on-ramp.
And then as the camera falls from inside the car, the motorcycle goes out of view. And then we see a motorcycle fall off the ramp. There's no passenger on. And then, woof! Tom Cruise lands on the hood, and I'm like, that's pretty good. That's a good reintroduction to Tom Cruise in this movie.
That was a fun choice.
Yeah.
It's just like your classic like improbable Tom Cruise like action thing. Like he's basically walking on the top of cars that are speeding down the freeway. It's like The Matrix 2.
Yeah.
Like he's just jumping from car to car. He jumps into the backseat of a convertible at one point. He's all like, interesting. Okay. And then he gets out and he jumps to the next one. He's just completely unbothered the entire time.
And he's so nonchalant about it. He's just like, hey June, can you open the door, please? Open the door, please. And I'm just like, yeah, this would be how terrifying it would be if Tom Cruise, the man, was stalking you, given his action movie pedigree and him doing all his own stunts.
This is how
Who could stop this man?
This is how he courted Katie Holmes.
Yeah,
she could not get away from him.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman's watching this and being like, yeah, this tracks. Yeah. Been there, sister.
That's how it was like. They met on a car movie, so that probably was. That probably was right from that, yeah. So yeah, June runs away. She escapes. She's still wearing her bridesmaid's dress at this time. Yeah. She runs away from Tom Cruise, and then the most improbable thing in this entire movie happens. She yells at a public bus to wait for her, and it does. But she gets onto the bus, but even that doesn't stop Tom. I don't know how he's able to get on top of the bus.
He's Tom fucking Cruise.
He just shows up. He just transports.
He's got all the money in the world, and he's been doing like action stunts for like 40 fucking years.
He prayed to Xenu, and Xenu just dropped him right on top of that bus. But yeah, he tracks her down.
And, she meets up with Rodney again, and just like, you got to help me. There's this crazy guy who I was involved in a plane crash with him. Like, there's these crazy government guys after me, and Rodney completely takes the wrong message from it and tries to divulge that he misses.
He wants to get back with her.
Yeah. God damn it, Rodney.
But also, like, she does like the dumbest thing, because Rodney is a fireman, and she runs to the firehouse where Rodney is, like lifting weights with all of his other like firefighter buddies, and then they immediately go to a second location. No, stay at the firehouse.
Yeah.
He will have a much harder time trying to get you away from like all of like these trained firemen than he would in a public diner, which is where they go.
Yeah.
And that's like that's her biggest mistake. If she had stayed at the firehouse, the movie wouldn't have happened, probably.
Oh, but I
got
a real tickle out of this.
This is the best. I think this is my favorite scene in the movie.
So she's panicking, and here comes Tom Cruise, and just using that movie star charm of his to get in the good graces of Rodney. And he says, "Oh, but we still got to get away." And then he handcuffs himself to Cameron Diaz, pulls out the gun, and just like, "Nobody move."
This is my favorite line that I wrote. Yeah. I rewound because I wanted to get it.
He gets like a donkey kick to a waiter or something.
Well, I thought you were making a move.
I thought you were making a move.
Sorry,
Sorry. Thought you were making a move. Sorry? It's all right. Donnie's making a move. Pies. Pies for everybody. Everybody gets pies. Okay, no ice cream, a la mode. Weakens the legs, people. Lincoln knew it. That's why they got to him. No one follows us, or I kill myself and then her.
That's the best line in the movie. It's delivered legitimately well. I don't know whether or not that was like a written screenplay line or if that is a Tom Cruise improv line. If it is, Tom Cruise
Brilliant.
is much funnier than we give him credit for.
Or otherwise it was like one of the 12 writers
Yeah.
was a comedian, or
I love the stream of consciousness. My favorite thing of this line is where he goes like, "No ice cream, a la mode," which means with ice cream. So that didn't make it past the editors, but it's great.
It's like he kicks the waiter. I thought you were making a move, and everyone gets pies. Mac from Always Sunny in Philadelphia
Absolutely.
would be a shoo-in for something
It
like
is,
this.
absolutely, yeah. And just like the sheer nonsense of Lincoln knew it,
Yeah.
that's how they got to him. To his credit, I think what he's doing here is he's trying to present this idea of a crazy person, so he can kidnap her in broad daylight,
And then the feds know that she's not involved
Right.
with him.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's this one part actually where he makes the point that, now that these people are after you, you're better off sticking with me, but I can't be dividing my attention between protecting you because there's someone else I should be protecting. And I'm like, okay, so Cameron Diaz actually means nothing to you. She's just a victim of circumstances, and you're trying to get everyone else off her tail, but she won't leave you alone.
Well, yes, because they're sort of layering in the idea that Cameron is, falling for this character. At this point in time, she's very much verbally being all like, "I want you to leave me alone. I want to go back home," or whatever. But it's sort of like laying the groundwork of she's attracted to like the action and the danger, and that's where she ends the movie, where she's all like, "This is what I like. I like this sort of like high-paced white knuckle sort of like thrill ride that I'm on," or whatever. So, but I guess like the implication is that she was just a random person that Tom switched tickets with. So he could get there, and now Peter Sarsgaard is the one that keeps involving her.
Yeah, and he also used her to smuggle the MacGuffin of the movie through security. She was a means to an end, and that's where it should have ended. She should not have gotten on that plane. That was the feds sort of manipulating events again against what Tom Cruise wanted to happen. And now he just has to look out for her.
Yes.
But for all intents and purposes, Cameron Diaz means nothing to Tom Cruise.
Other than the fact that she's like a civilian that he doesn't...
And now she's in his care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He doesn't want her blood on his hands.
Yeah.
And evil Peter Sarsgaard keeps finding a way to involve her because he figures this will be a good way for me to capture Tom Cruise.
Right. But I just want to get it out there that at no point does he have any kind of romantic feelings for Cameron Diaz. Initially. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, they have a pretty steamy kiss on the plane.
Well, I think he was surprised by the kiss. I think he was surprised by the kiss because that was her offer, right? She's like, "This isn't my first rodeo, June," or whatever. She gets herself all hyped up, goes up, plants a kiss on him, and then decides it's because she's had half of a tequila. She spilt the other tequila on her blouse, which is why she went to the bathroom in the first place. So
he's also a little distracted because he's aware of the fact that the plane has no pilot.
That's right. But there's a beat there where he's like, "Wow,
all right.
a moment."
I don't know. I never got that. I thought that was just sort of another tool in the super spy arsenal, where like he knows how to play the heart. As it were.
Admittedly, I could be projecting here a little bit with the romantic Tom Cruise stuff. That's fair.
I think he's attracted to Cameron Diaz on the baseline of the fact that she's Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
You would have some feelings towards.
Sure, yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about her all that much. You want to have a quick Cameron Diaz sidebar? What are your thoughts on her?
Oh, I love Cameron Diaz.
she's great, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I love her more in okay, Gangs of New York, no. Just no. Not for
She's
me.
not perfect for every role.
She's not perfect for every role.
Yeah.
Nobody is, right?
Yes.
So, let's be fair. I think she's okay in this. I loved her in Something About Mary. I love her in... I love her when she knows what she's doing. I loved her in The Mask.
She's a great comedic actress.
Yeah.
That's really the avenue.
Yeah.
And she's I'm sure you can find great Cameron Diaz dramatic roles as well too, but clearly comedy is kind of where she shines. It's where she works the most. Someone who's been away from movies for a while because she had just an absolutely disastrous year where she did Bad Teacher, Sex Tape, and the Annie remake. And then following that, she's just all like, you know what, maybe I just won't be in movies anymore.
Yeah.
And apparently she has a Netflix movie with Jamie Foxx coming out later this year, so maybe she's finally back.
Yeah.
She's totally fine in
Yeah,
this.
I think she's a cool lady too. I think I like her just as like I get a good vibe from Cameron Diaz. I remember there was this one interview she did on The Daily Show where I think Jon Stewart had like a finger injury and he had stitches. And they had said that they're going to cut the interview short so we can go to the hospital and get them removed. And Cameron Diaz apparently said, no, I can do that for you. Because I guess she had like first aid training or something. And yeah, so they have like their sit down interview. And instead of like talking about the movie, they're just talking about like, you know, her life outside of movies and how she knew how to do this. I know that's kind of cool. That's a side of celebrities you don't quite see. It's like when you find out when an actor can fly a plane.
Right.
It's like, oh shit, you got like a life outside of show business. That's cool.
It's like when you find out Gina Davis has like this venerated career of like Olympic level archery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's true.
Oh, wow.
Yes. That's why she hasn't been in movies for a while, because she transitioned into archery for a while.
She's got the Olympic story about it.
Yeah. There's another funny line here where like Tom Cruise is all like, I tried to warn you to not get on the plane. And she's like, when? It's like when I said things happen for a reason. And she said like, that's not a warning. Just say, don't get on the fucking plane, June. And that's like the PG-13's one F-bomb for the movie there. Pretty well delivered. But yeah, they're on the run now.
They go to the safe house where the guy who he's meant to be
Oh,
protecting,
yes.
yeah, the guy who invents the Zephyr, which is this perpetual energy battery.
That is introduced. It's the thing that he was able to smuggle through security because he has hidden it inside a knight.
A little knight.
And this is the first instance of the point where he pulls out this little toy that has the battery inside it. I'm all like, oh yeah, this movie's called Night and Day, isn't it? But it's not like night. It's specifically night with a K.
Yeah.
Is that because there's a knight there? I mean, we'll get to there. We'll get to it
We'll
eventually.
get to one of those two.
Not a great title.
Yeah.
But yes, Tom Cruise keeps implying that he's going to meet the inventor of this battery, whose name is Simon. They go to the safe house and they are late, so Simon has left, but he has left a hidden message on the wall that Tom Cruise can only see if he like stands next to the wall, and
I think
it's fairly clever.
Yeah, it's all right.
And then a bunch of mercs show up and start blasting the shit out of this place.
Unrelated to the feds, like there's another contingent of people that are up to kill Tom Cruise.
Yes, because there's also a weapons dealer named Antonio, who presumably is the person that Peter Sarsgaard is trying to sell the Zephyr battery to. But yes, so the government agency is after Tom and Cameron, and now these criminals are also after them. And good luck telling them apart. Because they're
all wearing special
they're all
ops gear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there's like a moment. This is the second time that Cameron Diaz gets drugged. She gets put out for like 2 days charitably. Like it's like she should have like minor brain damage when she wakes up here.
Now, on the one hand, I think it's a very clever mechanic to show off a time lapse in a spy thriller where, you know, she's blacking in and out of consciousness and she's coming to in the middle of some elaborate action sequence. It's a good way to show the globetrotting adventure on the cheap, I suppose, where she comes in and out.
Right.
And he's like saying stuff like, hey, we're out of the woods now, just a little bit further.
Well, in this case, like she's in and out of it so much that we completely miss an entire action sequence because like she gets drugged, they get captured by the mercs. That when she wakes up, she's still groggy or whatever. We see Tom tied up and extended from like his legs where he's like swinging back and forth. He gets out of this off screen. That entire action sequence is not shown.
And then fade back into like they're just leaping out of a plane with a parachute. Then fade to black, fade back into they're on a boat. And God, on the one hand, it's a clever mechanic, but on the other hand, that is horrifying to experience something like for a woman to experience something like this, and it's noted crazy man Tom Cruise doing this.
Yeah.
And then the final time it happens, they're at a deserted island and she sees him, you know, coming out of the ocean with a couple of fish that he caught. She's wearing a bikini and she straight up asks him, how did I get here? Why am I in a bikini?
Yeah, and guess what? His answer, not great.
No. And I'm thinking he was never an agent. He's like a crazy billionaire who's taking this woman on this wild ride against her wishes. He's kidnapped this woman.
Yeah, I agree with you that, like, on like a service level, I think like this setup of someone getting drugged and they continuously get drugged and they come in and out of consciousness and like things are happening off screen or like the character is just adjacent to them. It's just the unfortunate optics of a man drugging a woman makes it a little too uncomfortable. If it was a female secret agent drugging like a dude, I think that's a little easier pill to swallow because
that's kind of the same thing.
How so? Because there's not
You're
that
just swapping the genders.
but there's not the same imbalance of power in that particular example. You know, it's like
I mean, if it were a man drugging another man or a woman drugging another woman, I don't know.
Possibly, I don't know. Or they could just leave this entire thing out of the movie to begin with. Because his answer is, I was trained to disarm a bomb blindfolded using only a paperclip and a junior mint, which is that classic screenwriting horror cliche. That's
the first day of the academy. They teach you something like
exactly.
that.
It's all like, what's that box of junior mints for, or whatever. Yeah. And he says like, I think I can take you out of your clothes and put you in a bikini without seeing anything. Not that's what I did. And it's meant to be like oh, you scamp. Oh, Tom Cruise, you little scoundrel. But maybe that flew in 2010. But it's a hard pill to swallow now. And they tried, spoiler alert for the end of the movie, they try to make it okay by implying that Cameron Diaz does the same thing to him.
Yeah, taste of his own medicine.
But it's like, at the end of the movie, we're led to believe it's all like, these two characters are at the start of their romantic relationship together, and both of them have non-consensually seen each other naked at this point. That's a hard place to start a relationship.
Yeah, I just had to choose, like, not to think about it too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
we're dredging it up here.
Yeah, I gotta roll with this in the spirit that I think was intended, which is that it's fun. You know, it's you have to believe he didn't really look, you know, he's a gentleman, even though it's like this tiny red bikini, like why? You know, but
even though he literally says, by the way, I totally looked at you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was like, I'm gonna let this go because it's
I don't know.
And to be fair, the movie lets it go because we move on from this and we don't stay on it.
For real.
We don't have enough time to think about the implications of what happened here.
It's just like you cast any guy in that role, be it Chris Tucker or Gerard Butler, and they're gonna look really bad doing all this. And the fact that it's Tom Cruise doing all this too just highlights how weird it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're at the deserted island, and then all of a sudden, like, something straight out of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes by and starts shooting up the joint.
This fully CGI, like, biplane or whatever the fuck it is.
It's not a biplane, it's like a Harrier jet.
No, it looks like it came out of Oblivion. It looks like it was leftover assets from one of his sci-fi movies. Very strange because I guess... The drug runners have been tapping Cameron Diaz's phone, and they were able to triangulate their location on this secret getaway island that TC has.
Within minutes, like mere moments.
Oh yeah, they show up immediately.
Amazing reception in that island in the middle of goddamn nowhere.
Yes, but Tom Cruise, you can never count him out because he has like a secret helicopter hidden under some things.
This rickety little chopper.
Cameron Diaz, like, point blank yells at him, "Do not drug me again." He goes, "Okay," and he gives him the Vulcan neck pinch, and she passes out.
You said not to drug you. Ain't I a stinker? So she comes to on the middle of a train going through the Swiss Alps, I believe it is. And we finally get a good look at Simon. He's joined the fray. I kept waiting for him to just like randomly show up when she comes to at one point in this movie. They happen to pick him up between her blackouts. It's Paul Dano.
It's the great Paul Dano, and he's here, and he's being his science dork or whatever. And
he's got fuck all to do in this movie.
He's very, very little to do in this movie. And by this point in time, he had done Little Miss Sunshine and There Will Be Blood, so like he's very well established. I'm gonna bring this up here. Spoiler for both of these movies. I had this observation. In this movie, Peter Sarsgaard kidnaps Paul Dano. In The Batman, Paul Dano kidnaps Peter Sarsgaard. Regardless of which movie you're watching, Peter Sarsgaard explodes. I just thought there was a little
revenge.
A little observation I noted here. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so this is a thing that Roy says earlier on the plane, where they're just having a conversation and they're getting to know each other, and Tom is talking about all the things he's never done, all the places he's never been. and he name checks some stuff, and I'm fairly certain everything he mentions on the plane ends up happening. Because it's all really specific stuff. Because one of the things he says is, I've never ridden on the Orient Express. And then she wakes up on a train going through the Alps. Now, they never specifically say that they're on the Orient Express. I have to imagine that that's it, though.
Yeah,
that's the train. That's the Alp train.
Yeah.
So I think everything he says... I was barely paying attention to what he said in that monologue because I didn't think it would matter. But as the film went on, I'm all like, oh, I think that was meant to be like a setup. And everything he said he didn't get to do, he ended up doing by the end of the
last
thing.
shot of the movie is definitely a payoff to what he was saying to her
Yes.
in their opening introduction. Yeah.
But they never really put a button on that necessarily. But anyway, they're on the train. Tom is with Paul Dano, and June, who has been like unconscious for like charitably like 48 hours at this point.
Like total, like at least some brain damage at this point.
Like
Poor woman.
if this entire adventure they're on like lasts a week, like she's been unconscious for 3 of those days. Like it's not good. She needs like a lot of oxygen. Like let's say that.
Yeah.
But she wakes up. Tom has left one of his trademark post-it
Cute
notes.
little notes.
Yeah.
Don't leave the room.
Don't leave the room, and she can't be told what to do, so she leaves the room, and a random dude comes up and starts talking to her, and she has not learned anything at this point because she immediately says, Simon, is that you? It's like, have you seen
Friend
Roy?
of Roy?
Friend of Roy? And he's all like, yeah.
Yeah, that's who I am. That's a ticket.
To this movie's credit, I thought the reveal was that this was just going to be like a train bro who was just going to like, you know, I ride trains and I pick up hot women or whatever. No, he's also an assassin, and they have a fight in the kitchen where the poor train cook gets offed. Another more blood on Tom Cruise's hands.
Did this guy have an American accent when he was chatting up Cameron Diaz at the bar, and then in the kitchen fight he has a German accent?
I think so.
What the fuck was the point of that?
Yeah, she doesn't know.
No.
Exactly.
He's just trying out some accent work.
Yeah, he's just working on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I do like this guy, how he, of all the people that Tom Cruise has gone up against this movie, this guy's basically Superman. So
Yes.
he's the only one that gets one over on Tom Cruise.
This is the only time invincible Tom Cruise ever
has met his match.
Yes, yeah, is briefly winded.
Yeah. So this German assassin gets stabbed in the fucking heart, takes out the knife.
Yeah, must have just missed it.
Yeah, just missed it. And then he pushes him out the window and grabs onto some sausage links before he completely falls out the window. And it only takes another oncoming train for him to be disposed of. And I'm like, what the fuck was the point of involving like Ivan Drago at this point?
Paul Dano has kind of a funny line here where he's hanging
Why won't you die?
he's hanging out the window on the sausage. He's just like, just die already. And then the train hits him and he goes like, oh no. Yeah, so they got away from that guy. This is absurd. This next thing is absurd. So like they got off the train. Peter Sarsgaard and his like team of like corrupt agents or whatever are like right behind them or whatever, and they're on the train and they go into the compartment. Peter Sarsgaard goes up to the window. He breathes on it, so it's like all foggy or whatever. And there's like a perfect circle on his breath. He looks through the circle. Tom Cruise is in the middle of the circle.
That's right.
And
you could see him from the other side of the platform. He knew exactly where to stand.
And then he says like always the classics, Roy, or something like that. Now my question to you, Peter Sarsgaard, if you're aware of the fact that this is something that Roy does all the time, why don't you have agents stationed directly where he should be? If you're aware of the fact that this is like his common thing that he does all the time, stand in the middle of the circle.
Tom Cruise, if you're on the run from this fucking guy, why you gotta do some bullshit little tricksy thing like that? And
Because it looks cool. Because it looks cool.
And then like a crowd goes by and he disappears within the crowd,
And it's
like he's fucking Batman.
It's all part of like his 6-part process, which involves him getting caught. Like this is we find out later on that it's all like, no, he planned this from the very beginning and he wanted Cameron Diaz to turn him in because that was all part of the plan.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So they're in, where was it, Austria?
Yeah, they're in Austria. I think they're in Austria, yeah.
Yeah, so they booked a hotel room and
Switzerland,
thank you. And just as Cameron Diaz is like starting to feel real comfortable with Tom Cruise, she overhears him making an appointment with someone named Naomi. And she was like, oh man, there's another woman in the picture. Oh, nuts.
Oh.
So he says,
he couldn't possibly just have like a casual relationship with a woman. Oh,
Nope.
no, not him.
So he says like, hey, wait in here in the hotel room. And then she sneaks out and follows him, even though I could have told you that he's probably fully aware when someone's tailing him.
Especially an inept woman.
Yeah.
I mean, really, she can't pull one over on him.
Oh,
But she thinks she can.
But
which
again-
is confusing to me.
All part of the plan. He
Yeah.
wanted her to do this.
All
He
part of
wanted her to be jealous, and turns out she has a slight amount of reason to be jealous, because Naomi turns out to be Gal Gadot,
Yeah, so...
who I forgot was in this movie.
So here's the fucking thing about this.
Whoop.
I actually looked into this, and I'm going to preemptively say this before you do, Kaz. This movie came out in 2010, and Gal Gadot's first movie was one of the Fast and the Furious movies that came
Yeah.
out like a year previous.
Yeah, she's not like anyone at this point in time.
But
yeah.
the way that this is staged and the way that her face is revealed, like 9 times out of 10, this would have been like, oh my god, they got so-and-so for this brief cameo appearance. But at this point in her career, she's not really anybody.
I think maybe there's just like a little... It's the thing that happens when like someone becomes super famous later on, and then you go and you watch an early role. It's just framed this certain way where we're now led to believe, oh shit, Gal Gadot's in this. But then, yeah, you look it up. This was like her second movie role or something like that, and she's just...
I don't know.
Yeah, she's just pretty lady at this point in
but
time.
But at this
yeah.
point, it feels like there's a bit of a drawn-out introduction to who this... like a little bit of a mystery. Who's this Naomi character we keep hearing about?
She's really no one.
She really is no one. She's like the middle woman between
Yes.
the arms dealer.
Because she has an earpiece in, and at a certain point, Tom Cruise just drops the flirting and just stops talking to her directly and just starts talking into her earpiece.
And that's a wrap on future Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Well, you know, she had to pay the dues.
Yeah.
Pay the dues before she became the lasso lady. Fuck, that's getting cut.
So Amanda Waller tracks down Cameron Diaz, and she says, like, hey, just so you know, like, we legit are the feds, and this guy has been labeled a rogue agent, and everything else he's told you about himself is a lie. Here's some security footage from the airport of him stuffing something in your bag. He orchestrated you not getting onto the plane. So this guy's lied to you the entire time. We need you to rat him out. So we're going to give you a spy pen to give us that you can click a little detector button when you can confirm that something is in his possession or not. And she leaves it out on the table for the super spy to notice right away.
Like, he walks in and is all... He knows what those pens look like.
Yeah.
He's used those pens.
He was from the agency. And he says, like, so you ratted me out, huh?
This is one of the stupidest things that happens. He comes in, he has like the MacGuffin with him. He has like the regenerating battery, which we are now gradually realizing is getting hotter and hotter as the
I did
scenes
like
go
how they set
on.
that up.
And Tom Cruise walks in, they've got champagne on ice. He's all like, I got the battery, whew, getting hotter. And he tosses the battery into the champagne bucket with all the ice. I immediately Googled battery equal water. And guess what? You're not supposed to put those in there. You're not supposed to get batteries wet. Especially like super secret powerful batteries that, spoiler, end up exploding or whatever.
Like actively corroding, like in his hand.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah. And he like and it doesn't make any sense either, because he's like holding it in his hand. He's all like, "Ooh, it's getting hotter," and he drops it in the thing, and the ice immediately starts melting. So it's like, how was he able to hold that without gloves? If that's how hot it was at that point in time. Yeah, that was dumb. And then later on, he dives into the water, and we're led to believe he's in there for a while. So it's like, so that battery is very wet. But yeah, she clicks the pen, and the government agents and.
Well, he says that hurt more than I thought it would, or whatever. He has a little line there where, and then I'm going like, wait, he knew? What?
This is all part of his master plan.
All part of his massive
Oh, this
12-part
seems
plan.
He's
very
never not in
long
control.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise's world, we're just living in it.
Yeah, exactly. He knows everything. Roy Miller.
Yeah, and he escapes, and he dives off of a roof, and he dives into the water, and they lose him, and they're all led to believe that Roy Miller is dead. Roy Miller has died, and then they're dragging Simon away, and Simon's like, "Did you think they were gonna let you go, June? You've seen the inside of the hive now!" And June's all like, "Oh God, what have I done?" And then they let her go home. They let her go to her sister's wedding. And
You see that Rodney seems to be with someone, even though we wanted to get back together. With
I didn't
Rodney.
even notice Rodney was in the wedding. To be frank, that's more, you're more observant than I am at this point. I mean, the sister is barely a character, but like I do like how there was like a little bit of conflict in the earlier scene with the sister. I like that the sister isn't a jerk. Because, like, she has, like, this nice little speech where she's like, after our dad died, June basically raised me. Now that I'm married, I want you to start thinking about yourself, June. And she says it in, like, the hokiest screenplay way of saying, where she says, for once, June comes before April now. And I'm like, oh God, that's why they've named these characters.
Oh my God. I'm glad I missed that. I would have rage quit the movie at that point.
You were too focused on Rodney at that point.
Really.
Yeah, you didn't hear that. So what we haven't mentioned earlier is that throughout the movie, Roy keeps looking at like this little cell phone thing that he has or whatever that's like motion detected, and he just looks at it, and then we just see kind of like this suburban house, and we see like people inside, people like fixing dinner, people like fixing a car or whatever, and that keeps happening, and Cameron Diaz sees it at one point, and she's all like, what is that? But she makes note of the address or whatever. She's all like, that might be relevant at some point.
Better look into it. So she goes to the house and snooping around outside.
She walks past the mailbox and it says, Night! That's how we know.
Night with a K.
Night with a K.
Yeah.
And we basically suss out that this charming older couple are Roy's parents, who are under the assumption that he died in Kuwait while he has been working for this super secret government agency for a while. That we also learn has been rigging it so that the parents won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes twice, and also like scratch tickets. Like they keep winning the lottery.
Yeah, never once questioning their luck or anything.
Well, the dad questions. It's kind of a funny interplay because the mom's all like, "Oh, we keep winning," and the dad's all like, "I didn't enter any of these."
Oh, you don't know what you're doing on that computer.
It's just such a great like hand wavy thing of like you never know what you're doing on that computer. I think he does. I think he's aware of this. But yeah, the dad
never lets on to it. But yeah, Cameron Diaz sees the pictures of young Tom Cruise, puts two and two together that must be his parents, and they're unaware that their son is still alive and benefactoring them.
So this is the moment where it falls into place for me, where I realize the movie's called Night and Day because while Tom Cruise's character is named Roy Miller, I guess his legal last name is Knight.
Yeah.
Now, Day doesn't make as much sense because there isn't a character named Day. Certainly Cameron Diaz's character can't be named Day because then her name would be June Day, which would make her a lovely June Day. Which now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe they should have named her. Why not?
Yeah,
this movie's stupid enough as it is. Just name her June, April Day and June Day.
Yeah.
Why not?
So I guess at this point she realizes enough of how Roy operates and how he's able to manipulate things behind the scenes that she knows that he must be cooking up something. So she calls up her own answering machine and says, to anyone listening, I'm at this address. I have the super battery. Come and get me, motherfuckers.
Well, it's also even dumber
she's like luring them all towards her.
Yeah, it's also even dumber than that because his mom at one point in time says like, oh, this was the day that he got his Eagle Scout badge for swimming, and he could hold his breath for like 4 minutes, and that's how she realizes he couldn't have died, because he can hold his breath for a very long time, based on this one thing that his mom said. But yeah, no, now she has the master plan. Now she's setting herself up. And sure enough, the bad guys show up and knock her unconscious yet again. That's like the fourth time.
She's an old pro at it at this point.
Exactly.
She gets taken to Spain, where the arms dealers inject her with like some experimental truth serum, which really just makes her not shut the fuck up.
She loves it. Yeah, and it's really stupid too, because it's like he gives her the truth serum so he can learn where the battery is.
And but they know that she doesn't have the battery.
Well, they find out through this, but then like she keeps like talking about stuff, and he keeps saying like, "Shut up!" And it's all like, "Bro, you're the one that injected her with the truth serum. You must have realized that it's going to be a stream of consciousness situation from here on out." But they're leading her through the arms dealer's mansion here in Spain. Beautiful tiling on these walls, just like a really stunning little place that they've found to shoot here.
Spanish villa
that later gets torn to shreds with machine gun fire.
We forgot to mention that Peter Sarsgaard, Twist, actually is a crooked guy.
Whoa, who could have guessed?
Yeah, and he's kidnapped Paul Dano.
And Paul Dano's in his trunk.
Yeah,
and
Tom Cruise is there, and he's going to rescue Dano. Yes. But then he realizes Cameron Diaz is also there when she's not supposed to be. And he's like, son of a bitch, I got to go after this lady again.
And like the agent that's in the car with Peter Sarsgaard, this is the moment where we learn, because he's all like, "Hey, we're going the wrong way," and Peter Sarsgaard's like, "Oh, you're right," and then he shoots him. So that confirms the fact that there are some good agents.
Yeah,
there are some agents that are just doing their job. Yeah. So Tom Cruise has a ton of innocent blood on his hands.
Yeah.
and more is to come. Yeah, because Roy shows up. Because he's on the roof, because he loves being on the roof of things.
Yeah.
Cars, buildings, doesn't matter. He wants to be on the top. He wants to be on the highest.
I did like how he dispatched the guards with the bullwhip.
Yeah, that was
it's
fun,
not
yeah.
how you think it would work with the bullwhip. You think it'd be like fucking Indiana Jones or like whipping people around the ankles. No, it's like watching Spider-Man take people out. He just like strings them up and hauls them off camera, and then they're like, the last guard realizes like he's the only one left standing, and then I guess Tom Cruise sucker punches him or something.
And then they escape on a motorcycle, and I mean, this is how you know Tom Cruise isn't dead, because if you saw the trailer for this movie is like 80% the motorcycle scene, and it hadn't happened yet, so it's all like, oh, okay, well, I know he's not dead because we haven't seen motorcycle yet.
Yeah, and it's a fun chase sequence that is coinciding with the annual running of the bulls, which adds a nice little random element to this pretty boilerplate chase sequence.
Because whenever you're in a foreign country, you always happen to be there, incidentally, on the day when, like, the famous thing that country is known for also happens to be happening.
Yeah.
If you're in Mexico, Day of the Dead happens to be happening that day. If you're in Spain, it's the running of the bulls. If you're in Italy, it's that day where they have the big fight with all the tomatoes. Anyway, yeah, so they're running away from the bulls. Antonio gets creamed by, like, an entire herd of bulls. That's the end of that minor villain. And Tom Cruise has, like, a tracker on Simon, so he knows he's in Fitz's car. So they drive to the end of a dock where Peter Sarsgaard has, like, now it's a biplane. Now it's, like, a seaplane that he's getting away with or whatever. So Tom Cruise throws him the battery. Simon, very stupidly, after he throws him the battery, Simon's just all like, oh, okay, it's fine. I guess I'll just make another one. It's all right. He says that standing right next to Peter Sarsgaard.
Yeah.
Peter Sarsgaard's all like, oh, yeah, you could probably make another one, huh? And then he tries to shoot Paul Dano. Dano. I don't know why I keep saying it that way. But he shoots Simon, and Tom Cruise jumps in front of him and takes the bullet for him. And Peter Sarsgaard gets away, and they get into the plane, and the pilot... very, very weird moment where he like unwraps the battery, and the pilot next to him and says, why is it so hot? How would he know that?
Because it's smoking.
I don't know. I thought it was a weird thing to do. And then Peter Sarsgaard says, it's hot because it's full of power. And then the helicopter explodes.
Yeah.
And that's the end.
That takes care of that.
That takes care of all of the bad guy stuff, practically, yes. But Roy has been shot, and now he's the one slipping in and out of consciousness.
Yeah, he gets back to the hospital, and Amanda Waller says, all right, you've been cleared, but Cameron Diaz knows that there's not a future for you because you gave up that life when you became a super spy. And then she leaves the room, and then we find out Cameron Diaz disguised herself as a nurse.
Well, it's also implied at this point, when Viola Davis leaves the room, she says, like, don't worry, Tom Cruise, we're going to take you somewhere secure and safe, which are the buzzwords he said earlier that mean they're going to kill him or whatever. So it's, like, kind of implied that Viola Davis is also maybe crooked, or they just want a clean house or whatever.
Yeah, they got a clean house, right?
Yeah, Tom Cruise knows too much.
He's a witness to too much dysfunction within, the umbrella of the CIA or whatever. And,
Yeah.
He might bust out some serious truths. As though I think he was happy to have his name cleared. I think he would have just gone back to being...
That's what he was trying to do.
The whole time, right? Like, for me, that landed so weird. But I thought that, like, her moxie, like, she's like, I'm gonna save him by just taking him to the morgue and pretending to be a nurse. And I'm like, how did this woman pull this together?
The security at this government agency.
Yeah, it's a
just
military
like
hospital for sure.
Yeah.
And,
and the civilian just wanders in.
A mechanic gets a hold of this weird poison that knocks people in and out of consciousness. Yeah. But she takes him to the one, Cape Horn, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like the last thing he said in his speech that he wanted to go.
Yeah, I wanted to go there, and she takes him there, and they repeat the line earlier about, like, how did I get in these shorts? It's like, hey, I can change a car battery with the lights off using nothing but a carburetor, as you said earlier. And so they decide, okay, well, we're going to have a nice, happy life together, and they drive off into the sunset, even though I still think to Tom Cruise, she was like a means to an end of getting the thing through security, and also a huge liability in his mission to protect Paul Dano. I get the vibe he wasn't really into Cameron Diaz.
But it's the better of the two options. And at this point in time, she has saved his life.
Yeah.
So maybe...
So he owes her.
Yeah, he owes her.
You know what? I think that's there's something wrong with the script there, because I think they were supposed to actually be falling in love. You know what I mean? Like, I think
That's
was the idea.
That's what the screenplay wants us to believe,
Yeah,
but it's
and
just the chemistry between these two actors isn't quite there.
And I think it's because they were like missing some scenes or something. Like there needed to.
But we
be
watched
more
the
of a-
extended edition.
I know.
There was nothing.
It's nothing but mechanic
They
stuff.
added more shit into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at this point in time, in the ending, like they drive off into the sunset, and at this point in time, if I'm Viola Davis, I'm just going like, cool. So like we're like a massive government agency that has like all of like this money and like security and tech. We'll find you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find you. Like we'll track you down. Like like your parents that we've been like supporting like all of these years. That's over with. Matter of fact, we've kidnapped them, so you'll turn yourself in. It's just like. It's like this Hollywood happy ending, but it's like, it's not going to work out. She's Amanda Waller. She'll find you.
But the parents are going to reunite.
Oh, I
They're
hated
going
that.
to reunite with their son because
was
they got tickets to Cape Horn or whatever.
That's
like,
right. That's the button of the movie is that we hear like the parents' voiceover.
You surprising me with some tickets to Cape Horn.
And the dad is just like, fundamentally, no. I have not bought tickets to anything. He's like, oh, you don't know what you're doing on that computer.
What a fucking mistake that would be for Tom Cruise's elderly parents to get like a mysterious trip out there and to find that their son has been alive this entire
that
time.
they've been grieving for.
That they probably like reconciled with and moved on with the rest of their lives. Where like they're gonna get heart attacks seeing him alive and well.
Well, and the dad was so bitter. And I'm like, he's bitter because he's sitting in like a lazy boy looking at his son's grade 9 photo, his son that was a fallen soldier in Kuwait for the last 25 years or whatever it's been. Like, it just struck me as bizarre, but also tidy. Like a tidy ending.
They're trying to tie everything up. All,
I'm like,
all
this
neat
is
and
fun
nice.
and forgettable for me, but that's okay.
That's full.
That's night and day.
That's night and day. That is
tidy and forgettable.
Night,
That was a better title.
night and day over top of everything.
Well, is there anything that we didn't bring up?
Well, the one thing that I did want to mention is that a couple of years after this movie came out, it was actually remade as a Bollywood movie. Which actually makes a lot more sense. You think about like the plot of this movie, I think it kind of works a little bit better under like the Bollywood formula, even though I did run down the plot of the Bollywood movie on Wikipedia. It sounds like it's very loosely based on this movie. It sounds like it doesn't have like a ton of shared DNA, but obviously this doesn't apply to all Bollywood movies, but certainly like the handful of Bollywood films I've seen, that's an industry that seems to embrace sort of casual stupidity a little bit better than that. And I could imagine like the framework of this movie with like some songs added, some musical numbers added
some
or whatever.
Over-the-top action sequences.
Yeah, definitely.
That defy physics. Yeah.
The Bollywood movie also does have a fundamentally better title than this movie. The name of the movie is Bang Bang!
Sure.
Come on, that's good. Bang Bang? I would go see Bang Bang.
Two away from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. Was anything to do with the plot that we didn't get to, Sarah? Anything that you wanted to talk about?
No, man. I feel like we covered it. Like, what is there to talk about? I went in wanting to love it, ended up liking it, also forgetting it for 10 years. I forgot it for 10 years. I
Yes.
saw it,
Yeah.
I forgot it. Yeah. I watched it again.
And following this recording, you will forget it for another 10 years.
I probably will forget it for another 10 years.
This movie's legacy is to be forgotten as soon as you watch it.
Yeah.
But does it have a certain something, or is it a whole lot of nothing?
Oh, I think it's a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't need those 2 hours back. I'm glad I spent them. Like, that's fine. You know, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I said it at the beginning of the episode. This is just the most middle-of-the-road thing I've seen in a really long time. It's not terribly good, but it's not spectacularly bad. It's just... It's okay. It does what it says on the label. If you want to watch a Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz action comedy, this is one of those. And you can't... It's like you can't... It's like the classic thing of Michael... opening the bag that says Dead Dove on the outside of it. I don't know what I was expecting. That's exactly what this movie is. It's a dead dove in a bag.
Well said, Cass. Well, that's it for our blockbuster. Nothing. Do we learn anything about Nothing blockbusters, Cass?
Some of them are okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose.
We liked The Peacemaker.
We did.
Sarah, you ever see The Peacemaker with George Clooney and Nicole Kidman?
No, I didn't see that one.
That's a good one. That's on Netflix right now. If you want to check that out, that's a good solid
That's
action.
That's a stirring yarn right there.
Yeah, it's a good solid action thriller without comedic elements.
Yeah.
That again is just like absolute boilerplate. Exactly the type of movie that it claims to be, but like is done very well. And then we covered The Mexican with Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts, which we did not care for. And like, yeah, and this
Walked
one
away mad. But yeah, so we really had all ends of the spectrum, you know?
the good, the bad, and the eh.
Yeah, that's what this one is.
That's
you know?
what it was.
Yeah, we covered the entire spectrum.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I didn't learn a damn thing this time.
No, God.
Which is what happens when you watch Hollywood movies.
I learned you and I have very different definitions of what a blockbuster movie is.
Sure. Look, we made this the miniseries because Harrison wanted to talk about The Mexican. And then arguably we chose two blockbusters and then The Mexican, which is a weird black comedy that only tangentially qualifies as a block. It's a blockbuster in the sense that Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts are in it.
Yeah.
I think if you want to use the term blockbuster in the loosest terms. But Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking your time.
Totally honored.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You got any recommendations that you've seen? Anything you've seen recently that you want people to check out? Anything?
Oh, I wish my brain would work like that right now. I can't think of
We
anything.
beat it out of you. Sorry.
Oh yeah. No, I got.
What is your curveball Tom Cruise recommendation movie? What do you think of the films that we talked about is like his most underrated movie?
Okay, let me look at my list. Well, I always feel like people should see Far and Away. I love Far and Away.
I feel like you're the only person I've ever met that recommends that movie.
Nobody I know has seen Far and Away, and I'm always like, did you guys? It's got a beautiful soundtrack. It's like, it's mystical. It harkens back to like immigration and like things changing and a new world and falling in love and potential and hopes dashed and hopes dreamed and all sorts of things like that. And it's the Ron Howard-ness of it that it makes it so good. Oh man,
Beautifully said.
yeah. I mean, gosh, what can I talk about? I feel a little,
It's all right. We can be. We might be all tapped out on Tom so far.
and we might be, yeah.
Like one of your notes is just Renee Zellweger.
Make sure you bring her up.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like things about Tom Cruise that I like. You know, like I like his physical choices. I like his understanding of stakes. I like his eye acting. I like his breath acting. Like he covers it all. Like I mean, he really is a masterclass at acting. And I think what I take away from watching interviews, like specifically interviews around The Outsiders, is like he has a crazy work ethic that has served him for 40 years in the business. And I think that is what longevity in this world, maybe in every career, but certainly in film, is a work ethic and looking like Tom Cruise. Yes. If you can marry
Definitely
those two
helps.
things, you're good to go.
And possibly having the financial backing of, anyway, but absolutely well said. So yeah, we've covered Tom Cruise. Like next time, whenever, open invitation to come back anytime you want. Any ideas about a filmography you want to talk about next time?
Guys, can we do Roadhouse? Like old school Patrick Swayze Roadhouse.
I mean, we've covered Swayze before, but
Have you?
I'm certain we
I
could
will
probably.
have to listen.
Yeah, I'll tell you what episode that is after we're done here, but I'm sure we can find another unseen Swayze that we can end up talking about here.
I love me some Swayze. You
right.
know?
Excellent.
Like,
All right. Well, until then, that was Night and Day, directed by James Mangold. If you liked this episode, please check out our back catalog of episodes. The further you go back, you will find them under the title of The Fuck Is This? It's the exact same show. It's just us talking about a movie. It just has slightly less of a framework. We are available on Spotify and YouTube. You can follow us on all of the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, what have you. We'd like to thank Eddie Lamb for his fantastic theme music. You can follow me on Letterboxd. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
I'm Jameson Rafter, and in a very nice finishing line here, in the immortal words of Tom Cruise, you complete me.